Chapter 585. The blood-red claw slammed down on Zhuobaoyang with a whistling wind. Zhuobaoyang was terrified. He screamed, "Lord Lin, save me! Damn it! You betrayed me!" Hearing this, Xue Tianying immediately understood what had happened. He flew into a rage and his giant claw, which was shining with a blood-red demonic light, slashed toward Zhuobaoyang at an even faster speed. "Ah! Xue Tianying, aren't you too naive to kill someone in front of me?" Loud laughter suddenly rang out. Suddenly, an invisible divine thought rippled and turned into a huge tiger. With a long roar, it waved its claws. Bang! Bang! When the claws collided, it shook violently and created a strong shock wave. Zhuobaoyang felt a huge force coming towards him, and he was sent flying by the shock wave. He landed outside the hall. "Damn it!" Xue Tianying roared. He was about to attack again, but his body trembled and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. At the same time, the energy in his body became chaotic. The blood dragon's power, his blood and meridians were all messed up. They kept colliding with his internal organs. Puff! Xue Tianying spat out a mouthful of blood. His face turned pale and his body went limp. He could no longer attack. The giant blood-red claw from before also disappeared. If it weren't for the chaotic energy in his body, Lin Yi wouldn't have been able to defeat him so easily. "Damn it! Who is it? How dare he trick me?" Xue Tianying's eyes turned cold as he raised his head and stared ahead. "Pata! Pata!" The crisp sound of footsteps resounded as a figure entered Xue Tianying's sight. "What? Ninth Tribulation Half-True Saint? Divine Will Saint?" Xue Tianying was stunned when he saw Lin Yi and felt Lin Ye's aura. With such an obvious characteristic, he recognized it at a glance. The person who came must be Lin Yi. The corner of Xue Tianying's mouth twitched violently as if he had swallowed countless flies. His expression was extremely ugly. Just now, he was still cursing the others for being trash and fantasizing about making Lin Yi into a puppet. He didn't expect that Lin Yi would appear in front of him now, and in such a high-profile manner. Xue Tianying's face darkened as he felt the power in his body weakening. He could not help but take a few steps back and bury his body deep in the blood. These pools of blood contained mechanisms that could save his life. Gulp! Gulp! Blood surged and wrapped around Xue Tianying, secretly healing his body. However, Xue Tianying's covert actions could not escape Biluo's eyes. "Xue Tianying, if you continue to play tricks, today will be the day you die." Lin Ye's laughter suddenly rang out. "I came here today to discuss a cooperation with you. I have no intention of harming you." "Discuss a cooperation with me?" Hearing this, Xue Tianying could not help but stop what he was doing. He looked at Lin Yi in confusion and then sneered. "Funny, what kind of cooperation do you have with me?" "Why not?" Lin Yi waved his right hand and the door of the hall suddenly closed. For a moment the entire hall was silent, leaving only the gurgling sound of blood flowing. The power of divine sense spread out and enveloped the entire hall. Except for Lin Yi and Xue Tianying, no one else could hear their conversation. Frowning slightly, Xue Tianying sensed for a moment and sneered. "What a powerful divine sense! It's comparable to an invincible saint. But I'm curious. How did you kill Mo Pinying with a single sword strike? The strength you've shown so far is not enough to defeat Mo Pinying." "Ha, I'll have to reveal my strength slowly." Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and smiled. "The cooperation I want to discuss with you is very simple. Give me the blood-soul heaven fusion technique, and we'll cultivate it together. What I asked for that day was not the remnant but the main one." "What? You? Xue Tianying's expression changed drastically. His hands trembled as he stared at Lin Yi. The blood-soul heaven fusion technique was a secret technique that he accidentally obtained when he fell off a cliff when he was young. Relying on the blood-soul heaven fusion technique, he could be said to have dominated the world for hundreds of years. Few people could compete with him. Although his cultivation level was low, his strength was unpredictable. Even an ordinary invincible saint like the great sage would not be able to kill him. At most, he would be able to defeat him. Therefore, as the blood-refining sect grew stronger and stronger in Sunset City, the people of the Celestial Treasure Pavilion had to give him some face. It could be said that all the credit was due to the blood-soul-heaven fusion technique. Lin Ye's words naturally shocked Xue Tianying. You? How do you know about the blood-soul-heaven fusion technique? Xue Tianying stared at Lin Yi and dipped his right hand into the pool of blood. Why wouldn't I know? Lin Yi smiled and said indifferently, in addition, I know that the blood-soul-heaven fusion technique can be practiced by two people at the same time. Moreover, the way you practice it now is too slow. Giving the remnant of the technique to others to practice and use as your cultivation furnace is too stupid. Lin Yi shook his head and said, if you want to practice the blood-soul-heaven fusion technique, the fastest way is to kill. Hearing Lin Ye's words, the corner of Xue Tianying's mouth twitched. He did not expect that Lin Yi, who looked so decent, would say such shocking words. If you hand over the blood-soul-heaven fusion technique, we can practice it together and improve together. I can help you plan the entire Sunset City. I obtained a killing formation that goes with the blood-soul-heaven fusion technique, by chance. When I set it up, it will cause people to kill each other. When the blood formation is activated, everyone in the formation will die. Their blood and souls will be the nourishment of the blood-soul-heaven fusion technique. Perhaps we can reach the sky in one step and enter the Sky Saint realm. Phew, is this enough? Raising an eyebrow, Lin Yi looked at Xue Tianying with a faint smile. Rolling his eyes, Xue Tianying chuckled and said, interesting. How do I know if you are telling the truth? You are so cruel at such a young age. Who knows if you will attack me after I hand over the blood-soul-heaven fusion technique? You have studied the blood-soul-heaven fusion technique. I won't attack you so easily. Lin Yi smiled and said, if you don't believe me, we can make an oath. If we break it, heaven and earth will destroy us. Hearing this, Xue Tianying's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't help but be tempted. What are you hesitating for? Touching his nose, Lin Yi said indifferently, cooperate with me and the entire Sunset City will be ours. I can also increase your strength greatly. In that case, taking a deep breath, Xue Tianying was about to agree when a sword aura suddenly flashed across his chest like a sudden clap of thunder. End of chapter. Chapter 586. With a sudden clap of thunder, a sword chi suddenly appeared and swept across Xue Tianying's chest. Puff! Xue Tianying's body trembled as he felt the sword chi raging and tearing his internal organs and meridians. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale and his body was extremely weak. He could only float in the blood pool. However, the pain in his body was nothing compared to the anger in his heart. If Xue Tianying still could not tell that he had been tricked, he would be hopelessly stupid. Hiss! You're still alive. Not far away, Lin Yi held the blazing flame in his hand and a sword shadow appeared behind him. He stared coldly at Xue Tianying like a deity. He was shocked. In his opinion, this sword strike could at least seriously injure Xue Tianying. Unexpectedly, the effect was not as good as he had imagined. The great sage is indeed the great sage. Even though you're poisoned and can't exert 1/10 of your strength, you're still alive even though you've been sneak attacked. Lin Yi sighed. Compared to you, Mo Pinying is simply a piece of trash. He wasted a rare opportunity for me. So, Mo Pinying was also killed by your sneak attack. Hearing this, Xue Tianying's eyes narrowed as he stared at Lin Yi with killing intent. However, Xue Tianying knew that in his current state, he would die if he continued to fight with Lin Yi. Xue Tianying rolled his eyes and began to look for a way to escape. Sneak attack? Lin Yi shook his head and said, "No, he died because of his ignorance. I just blocked his blood against the world, and he stood there motionless. He did not defend or attack. I slashed out with my sword and he died. By the way, since you're his sect leader, are you sure you won't avenge him?" Speaking of this, Lin Yi looked at Xue Tianying mockingly. "Damn it! You bastard!" Hearing that, Xue Tianying was instantly enraged. If it weren't for the fact that he was powerless, he would have already attacked. Goo goo! The blood slowly seeped into Xue Tianying's body, healing his injuries and increasing his strength. Xue Tianying retreated silently, waiting for his strength to recover. Lin Yi was also waiting. He had infuriated Xue Tianying several times in order to speed up the flow of Xue Tianying's blood dragon force and weaken Xue Tianying's defense. Lin Yi knew that Xue Tianying was also waiting for his strength to recover, but he had to wait. It was true that Xue Tianying's strength was recovering, but his body would grow weaker and weaker after being corroded by the blood dragon's blood and the origin heavenly water. Only then would he be able to kill Xue Tianying. As for Xue Tianying, if he recovered some of his strength, he could only rely on the supreme black light shield and his eightfold defense to defend himself. What a pity! If the 8 times attack wasn't wasted, we wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. Sighing inwardly, Lin Yi continued to provoke Xue Tianying with a cold expression. Xue Tianying had been in a high position for hundreds of years. How could he endure Lin Yi's humiliation? Anger surged in his heart, and the blood dragon force's blood flowed faster like sulfuric acid, constantly corroding his body. After 15 minutes, Xue Tianying finally could not take it anymore. Suddenly, he spun like a hurricane and charged toward Lin Yi. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The blood condensed into sharp blades, lined up neatly and pierced toward Lin Yi. "This is the moment I've been waiting for." Lin Yi was not angry. Instead, he laughed. As he laughed, the supreme black light shield and the supreme sacred armor appeared at the same time. Raging flames rose, and the sharp sword qi turned into tens of thousands of sharp swords, whizzing out and colliding with the sharp blades. Xue Tianying die. Myriad sword technique. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Tens of thousands of sword qi roared and rushed out, colliding with the blood blades. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of metal clashing could be heard, and a strong gale swept out. Every time they collided, the wind, blood, and sword qi would scatter in all directions. The aftershocks were extremely powerful. Even when they hit the supreme black light shield, they would cause bursts of sparks, and then bounce off again. Boom, boom. The aftershocks continued to collide and spread out. In an instant, the entire hall shook violently. This powerful offensive, even the main hall actually could not withstand it. Roar. Blood explosion. Seeing that Lin Yi had withstood the blood-red swords, Xue Tianying flew into a rage and went completely crazy. In such a state, Xue Tianying did not even notice the abnormality in the hall. As he roared, the blood pools under him exploded, and hundreds of streams of blood surged and gathered in front of him. Explode. Boom, boom, boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the blood that filled the sky suddenly attacked Lin Yi like a scarlet chain. At the same time, the blood water exploded crazily. Every time it exploded, countless drops of blood splattered out like sharp arrows. After several explosions, apart from the blood-red blades, the sky was filled with flying guillotines that contained a berserk power as they fell towards the forest. Bang! Bang! The sword qi was biting cold. As soon as it touched the blood guillotines, it exploded, and all the sword qi shattered. Whoosh! Whoosh! After the sword qi was shattered, the blood-red sharp blade was mixed in with the flying guillotine as it shot towards Lin Yi. Oh no! Seeing this, Lin Yi's face changed dramatically, and his eyes were filled with surprise. After all, Xue Tianying was in the great sage realm. He had many tricks up his sleeve and was difficult to deal with. Taking a deep breath, Lin Yi activated the Supreme Black Light Shield with all his strength. The Supreme Holy Armor on his body shone, and he activated his eightfold defense. Boom, boom, boom. Almost at the same time that Lin Yi activated his eightfold defense, the blood guillotines hit the Supreme Black Light Shield one after another. In an instant, violent power exploded like a bomb. Strong wind whistled, swept out, and spread out. At the same time, the blood blades kept stabbing. Every time they stabbed, the power of the Supreme Black Light Shield would be weakened. Whoosh, 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 boom, boom, boom. Under the double attack of the blood guillotines and the blood blades, even the Supreme Black Light Shield, a supreme holy artifact, could not withstand it. In less than 10 breaths, it shattered and turned into a ray of light, entering Lin Ye's body. Whoosh! In the next moment, all the power hit Lin Ye's supreme holy armor. Boom! 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 Lin Yi only felt a huge force flowing into his body. His internal organs were constantly being hit. His cheeks turned red, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He was severely injured. Sensing this, Biluo, who was in the ninefold space, quickly took out the origin source heavenly water and sprinkled it on Lin Yi. 1. When the origin source heavenly water was sprinkled, Lin Ye's body was full of vitality. The indescribable power instantly filled Lin Yi with vitality. End of chapter. Chapter 587. Buzz. Under the strong stimulation of the origin source heavenly water, Lin Ye's internal injuries recovered rapidly and his internal organs took a turn for the better. However, just as Lin Ye's body recovered, the violent energy of the flying guillotine, mixed with the sharp aura of the blood-red blade, penetrated Lin Ye's body once again. Drops of origin source heavenly water appeared and entered Lin Ye's body. In an instant, Lin Ye's internal injuries recovered and the violent energy was expelled from his body. Lin Yi felt extreme pain in his body. Although the energy could not cause serious injuries to him, as long as he did not die, he could recover with the help of the origin source heavenly water. However, when he recovered, the meridians in his body were regenerated and became extremely sensitive. The pain seemed to be magnified 10 times and continuously transmitted into Lin Ye's mind, stimulating his nerves. Although Lin Yi had experienced pain and torture, his face was still distorted when he endured the pain. His face was extremely ferocious and looked extremely terrifying. Boom, boom, boom. The flying guillotine continued to fall and the violent energy was like the roar of an angry dragon, constantly crashing into the surroundings. Bang! Suddenly, the main hall could no longer hold on, and it exploded with a loud bang. Even the divine sense light screen protecting the main hall was shattered with a loud bang. All of a sudden, the entire blood refining sect began to shake. The ground quaked and the mountains shook. All the disciples of the blood refining sect were awakened. When they looked up, they were all shocked. They saw that the originally vast and majestic main hall was filled with a blood-red color. Powerful energy continued to wreak havoc and swept out from within. Hiss! What's going on? Who offended the sect leader? Why did the sect leader suddenly attack? Oh no, is there an enemy? In an instant, many disciples of the blood refining sect rushed over. However, they did not dare to get close to the main hall and only looked up at the blood sea in the sky. The energy that was escaping from the blood sea made them tremble with fear. Boom, boom, boom. Like muffled thunder, rapid breathing suddenly sounded in everyone's ears. Damn it, I'm going to tear you to shreds. The furious Xue Tianying sensed that Lin Ye's aura was getting weaker and weaker. He let out a thunderous voice that exploded in the sky. However, Xue Tianying did not stop. He still stared coldly at Lin Yi. He wanted to see Lin Yi being torn apart by the flying guillotine's violent power and pierced through by the blood-red blade. As time passed, the blood guillotine gradually dissipated, and its power became increasingly weak. The blood-colored sharp blades that filled the sky had long disappeared without a trace. As the bloody aura gradually dissipated, the disciples of the blood-refining sect could clearly see Xue Tianying in the air. They couldn't help sucking in a cold breath. Hiss! What's going on? Sect Master looks so miserable. How is this possible? He's an expert of the Great Sage realm? Could it be that the experts of the Great Sage are here to attack? With this thought in mind, the numerous disciples turned their heads and looked to the side, only to see that there seemed to be a figure within the faint light. Seeing this scene, Zhuo Baoyang, who was hiding in the crowd, felt a chill in his heart and quickly tiptoed back. Since Lin Yi had been defeated, he would be courting death if he continued to stay here. As the light slowly dissipated, the figure was revealed. After being attacked by the flying guillotine and the blood-colored sharp blades, the sovereign's sacred armor on Lin Ye's body was already in tatters. His skin was charred and looked extremely terrifying. Hiss! That guy seems to be a helper of the Yu family. He's the one who defeated the young sect master and killed Elder Mo with a single sword. I didn't expect him to be so bold as to come here directly. Ha ha ha, sect master is still the best. He's beaten up to such a state. The disciples were shocked at first, but they soon recognized Lin Ye's identity and could not help but laugh wildly. Xue Tianying frowned slightly and carefully sensed Lin Ye's aura. After confirming that there was not much aura in Lin Ye's body, he snorted and stepped toward Lin Yi. Swoosh! However, the moment Xue Tianying stepped forward, Lin Yi, who looked like a corpse, suddenly turned into a flash of lightning. Holding the blazing flame in his hand, he transformed into a heavenly sword and unleashed the power of the heavenly sword 12 styles. Under the horrified gazes of the disciples, he suddenly pierced through Xue Tianying's chest. Poochie! With a crisp sound, Xue Tianying's body suddenly stiffened in the air. His pupils gradually widened, and his eyes were filled with horror. Behind Xue Tianying, Lin Ye's body froze. Holding the giant sword in his hand, his aura gradually recovered. Cough, cough. After a violent cough, Lin Yi turned around and stared at Xue Tianying indifferently. He did not dare to relax at all. No. This is impossible. You clearly have no aura. How can you be safe and sound? You. His body trembling violently, Xue Tianying's heart was filled with doubts. Although he hadn't recovered to the level of a great saint, he had surpassed the level of an invincible saint. Even though Lin Yi had a supreme sacred artifact, he couldn't withstand it. He couldn't understand how Lin Yi could still survive after withstanding such a violent attack. Ha, if not, how could you let your guard down? Lin Yi chuckled and raised his right hand. Sharp sword qi gathered like a hurricane and condensed into a short sword. Don't worry. I'll give you a quick death. The corners of Lin Ye's mouth curled up as he suddenly threw the sword qi towards Xue Tianying. Poochie! At this moment, Xue Tianying's body was still stiff, and he could not dodge at all. With a crisp sound, the short sword, which was completely condensed by sword qi, instantly pierced through Xue Tianying's head. The sword qi raged and suddenly exploded Xue Tianying's head. Blood flowed out, and the intense pain was like a tide, constantly attacking his nerve. Under the stimulation of this intense pain, Xue Tianying actually got rid of the stiff state. His body suddenly dived down and directly dived into the blood. Gulp, gulp. The blood pool surged. In just a few breaths, Xue Tianying's body had disappeared into the blood pool. Frowning slightly, Lin Yi suddenly became nervous. He spread out his divine thought and quickly shrouded the entire blood pool. A bunch of D*MN losers. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and kill this bastard for me. A sudden roar was heard. In an instant, the disciples of the blood-refining sect twitched their mouths and looked very strange. The disciples looked at each other, but no one dared to step forward. They even took a few steps back. What a joke! Xue Tianying, who was in the Great Sage realm, was beaten so badly by Lin Yi that he had to hide in the blood pool like a stray dog. If they went up to fight, wouldn't they be courting death? Ha ha! Xue Tianying, it seems that your subordinates are not willing to save you. Don't hide. With your current injuries, only death awaits you. End of chapter. Chapter 588. Boom! Suddenly, a dozen figures flew out from the pool of blood. Ha! Slash! Noticing this, Lin Yi waved his raging flames, and a sharp sword chi suddenly swept out, slashing the bodies of the dozen figures. Clang! Sword chi surged, but it emitted a sound similar to that of metal clashing, and sparks flew. Noticing this, Lin Yi could not help but raise his eyebrows as he carefully sized up the dozen figures. Their eyes were tightly shut and their faces were deathly pale. Their bodies seemed to have stiffened and they were not even breathing. No, those two seemed to be the elders from yesterday's duel. Suddenly, Lin Ye's eyes stared at the two figures. Blood was still flowing from their bodies, making them look extremely terrifying. Lin Yi was not the only one who found something wrong. The disciples of the blood refining sect who were watching below exclaimed one after another. That seems to be Elder Jing. Didn't Elder Rin mysteriously disappear? Why is he here? Gosh! They seem to have lost their minds and become puppets. In an instant, all the disciples of the blood refining sect were horrified. They kept retreating and sizing up the figures. At this time, they all understood that the so-called death in battle and mysterious disappearance were just puppets refined by Xue Tianying. Interesting, the corners of Lin Ye's mouth curled up slightly. Listening to the disciples below and recalling the effect of the blood-soul-heaven fusion skill, he understood Xue Tianying's means. He immediately sneered and said, Xue Tianying, even you are no match for me. Do you think you can defeat me with these puppets? Ah, boy, you just launched a sneak attack. A sinister laugh rang out. Since you've forced me to reveal my scheme, I don't need to hide anything anymore. Since you dare to make trouble in the blood refining sect, you are simply courting death. If we were outside, perhaps I would have died in your hands. However, you came to the blood refining sect. In the blood refining sect, I am a god. Really? With a smirk, Lin Yi said in disdain, If you are a god, then I will slaughter a god today. Since you're relying on these puppets, I'll get rid of them. As soon as he finished speaking, the power of his divine sense fluctuated, and the 10,000 elephant divine art was activated. Suddenly, it turned into a phoenix. Screech! With a vicious cry, the phoenix spread its wings and enveloped the dozen or so puppets controlled by the blood-soul-heaven fusion technique with a holy power. Stab, stab, stab. In an instant, those puppets, which were comparable to the invincible saint realm, were like snow meeting the scorching sun. They immediately made crisp sounds, twitched, and turned into waves of smoke, drifting in the air. What Lin Yi was least afraid of was this kind of sinister method. If they had fought head-on like before, Lin Yi wouldn't have been Xue Tianying's opponent. Without the origin heavenly water, Lin Yi would have been dead by now. However, Xue Tianying had abandoned his strongest point and played with the sinister puppets. Since that was the case, Lin Yi didn't mind teaching him a painful lesson. Poochie poochie. Soft sounds continued to ring in the air. In less than a dozen breaths, those terrifying puppets had turned into smoke and disappeared from the world. What? How is this possible? Seeing this scene, the blood pool churned. Xue Tianying, who was hiding in the pool, was shocked and angry. He couldn't believe his eyes. More than a dozen invincible Saint Realm experts, even if they were facing the great sage, they could stall for a moment to buy time for him. However, in front of a ninth tribulation half-true saint, Lin Yi, they couldn't even last a few breaths. This was simply a fantasy. Nothing is impossible. Lin Yi snorted coldly. Since you're unwilling to come out, I can only take the initiative to make a move. Since you want to hide in the blood pool, I'll destroy this blood pool. With a cold shout, Lin Shui sent a drop of origin source heavenly water into the bloody pool with a thought. Drip. As soon as the drop of origin heavenly water fell into the blood pool boiled and miserable shrieks rang in the air. Swoosh. A black figure rushed out. His body was emitting black qi and he was trembling. His eyes were filled with fear as he looked at Lin Yi. At this moment, Xue Tianying looked extremely miserable. He didn't have the domineering appearance he had before, and he didn't look like a patriarch at all. Seeing this scene, the blood-refining gate's disciples couldn't help but fall silent. It had to be said that the shock that Lin Yi brought to them was really too great. A ninth tribulation half-true saint realm expert had forced a great sage expert to such a state? Prepare to die. Seeing Xue Tianying rush out, Lin Yi didn't hesitate. He raised the crimson flame and slashed at Xue Tianying. No. Xue Tianying's pupils shrank and he shouted, "Brother, don't kill me. As long as you spare my life, I'll give you anything you want." "Ha ha, what I want is your life." Amidst his laughter, the crimson flame flickered with fiery light and sharp sword qi as it fell on Xue Tianying's neck. Bang! A violent sound suddenly rang out. Before the raging flames had even landed, Lin Yi felt a sharp pain in his wrist. In the next moment, a surging power suddenly bloomed. Under that violent force, Lin Yi didn't even have the slightest chance to resist, and he was sent flying. What's going on? With a frown, Lin Yi turned his head and saw several figures flying over. Xue Tianying was stunned and he was overjoyed. He looked at them and wailed, "Brother Song, Brother Guan, Brother Wang, save me! Damn it, they're so fast!" Hearing this, Lin Ye's heart sank. He didn't expect the people Xue Tianying had called for to arrive so quickly. It would be troublesome if he wanted to kill Xue Tianying. Boom! 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 Several figures arrived at lightning speed. They first glanced at Lin Yi, then looked at Xue Tianying. Their eyes were filled with disdain. A great sage expert was reduced to such a state by a ninth tribulation half-true saint. It was a disgrace to them. Xue Tianying's mouth twitched when he sensed the disdain in the three figures' eyes. He couldn't suppress his anger towards Lin Yi. "My three brothers, please save me quickly. This brat sneaked an attack on me and poisoned me. I can't even use 1/10 of my strength." "Has save you?" One of them suddenly said, "The great sage is in such a miserable state. What's the use of saving you?" "You." Hearing this, Xue Tianying was enraged, and he glared at that person. However, he soon calmed down. He hadn't recovered his strength yet. If he fell out with the three of them, Lin Yi would definitely kill him. "If you help me kill that brat, I can share the Yu family's secret with you." End of chapter. Chapter 589. If you help me kill that brat, I'll share the Yu family's secret with you. Deal. As soon as Xue Tianying finished his words, the three of them were overjoyed. They looked at each other and attacked at the same time. Boom! A slender sword, a blazing flame, and a ferocious tiger suddenly appeared and attacked Lin Yi. Damn it! Lin Ye's face changed when he felt the surging saint energy around him. He curled up his body and the supreme black light shield appeared again. Bang! Almost as soon as the Tai Xian light shield appeared, it was crushed by the violent saint energy and shattered. In the next moment, the violent energy poured into Lin Ye's body, causing his internal organs to shake violently. Puff! Lin Yi spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body flew out like a kite with a broken string. Seeing this scene, Xue Tianying felt relieved. Even the heartache he felt when he made the promise just now was lessened. The three of them frowned. They had thought that Lin Yi was strong, but now it seemed that he was weak. Therefore, they looked at Lin Yi with strange expressions. Xue Tianying was not weak, and his ability was strange. They could not understand how Xue Tianying could be defeated by Lin Yi. Damn it! As soon as Lin Yi got up, he felt pain all over his body. He did not dare to stay any longer. He stomped the ground and flew out like an arrow. He could not stay here any longer. Damn it, this brat dares to run. Seeing that Lin Yi was about to escape, Xue Tianying was furious. He ignored his injuries and chased after him. You're just a ninth tribulation half-true saint. Do you think you can escape from us? Seeing this, the three of them sneered. They waved their hands and an invisible energy surged toward Lin Yi. Buzz. However, the invisible energy was crushed into nothingness by Lin Ye's divine sense before it could touch him. Noticing this, the three men's expressions changed slightly as they blurted out, "Oh no, he's a divine will saint." In the time it took for him to be stunned, Lin Ye's body had already flown dozens of miles away. Hurry up and chase. Xue Tianying shouted coldly, "This kid is very strange. If we don't kill him, there will be trouble in the future." As soon as he finished speaking, Xue Tianying immediately chased after him. The three of them raised their eyebrows slightly, looked at each other, and immediately followed. At this moment, they had promised Xue Tianying that as long as they didn't kill Lin Yi, Xue Tianying would never tell them the secret. Swish! Swish! The sound of something breaking through the air rang out, and three figures chased after him at the same time. The disciples of the blood-refining sect were shocked. Heavens! 4 great sage experts are attacking at the same time just to kill a ninth tribulation half-true saint? Hiss, this is simply a miracle! No, I can't stay in blood-refining sect any longer. That bastard Xue Tianying actually refined the elders into puppets. There's no guarantee that he won't attack us. That's right, no wonder the disciples have been mysteriously disappearing. They must have been poisoned by the sect master. Let's leave while the sect master is chasing after the assassins. After hearing the news that Xue Tianying had refined puppets, many disciples of the blood-refining sect were terrified and did not dare to stay any longer. They hurriedly left the blood-refining sect. It had to be said that although Lin Yi did not kill Xue Tianying this time, he had completely destroyed the blood-refining sect. Even if Xue Tianying recovered his strength, none of his subordinates would be willing to work for him. No one was willing to live in danger at all times. In the sky above the setting sun city, several figures broke through the air, and a gust of wind suddenly rose, attracting the attention of the passers-by. However, when they found out that the pursuers were great sage experts, they all shrank back and did not dare to look again. Lin Yi was the only one who sped off into the distance. Under the threat of death, Lin Yi burst out with his fastest speed. Even 4 great sage experts could not catch up with him. In addition, Biluo had been feeding him origin heavenly water to replenish his saint force, so he did not have to worry about his strength running out. Therefore, the few people who were chasing after him couldn't help but be puzzled. A mere ninth tribulation half-true saint, even if he was a divine will saint, could not have such a good physique and speed. However, since they had already made their move, they could not give up halfway. They could only continue the pursuit. In less than 10 minutes, Xue Tianying and the other 3 had chased Lin Yi out of the setting sun city and into a dense forest. Phew, I'm finally here. Lin Yi spread out his divine sense and sensed for a moment. After confirming that there was no one around, the corners of his mouth curled up. He stopped his movement and floated in the air. And swish, swish, swish. How fast was a great sage expert? Almost 2 breaths after Lin Yi stopped, Xue Tianying and the other 3 had caught up. Their figures flickered and suddenly surrounded Lin Yi. Xue Tianying and the other 3 frowned slightly and looked at Lin Yi in confusion. They were very curious. Why did Lin Yi suddenly stop when he was running away? Moreover, looking at Lin Ye's calm appearance, it seemed that it was not that he could not escape, but that he stopped of his own accord. In an instant, Xue Tianying could not help but have an ominous premonition. Even the 3 saints were curious. They carefully sized up Lin Yi, but did not directly attack. Phew! Exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Lin Yi looked at the 3 and sighed. The three of you should not be from the blood refining gate. I have no enmity with you, so I do not want to attack you. If you don't want to die, I advise you to leave here quickly. As soon as he finished speaking, the three saints' faces froze. The corners of their mouths twitched, and their eyes gradually turned cold as they looked at Lin Yi. How funny, how interesting! You're just a divine will saint. Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to us like this? Good boy, since you're courting death, don't blame me for being impolite. As they spoke, the saint power in the three saints' bodies surged. Their saint power was like a giant mountain, pressing down on Lin Yi. Sigh. Realizing this point, Lin Yi couldn't help but sigh. He used a pitiful gaze to look at them and said in a low voice, I really didn't want to commit murder, but you're courting death. Feeling Lin Yi's gaze, the three saints suddenly felt a chill in their hearts. An ominous premonition surrounded them, causing their hairs to stand on end and the hairs on their bodies to stand on end. Damn it, this boy is too strange. Shui Tianying growled. Let's attack and kill him first. Rolling their eyes, the three saints shook their heads violently. They all raised their hands and attacked Lin Yi fiercely. Looking at Lin Yi, their eyes were full of cold killing intent. End of chapter. Chapter 590. Boom! As the surging holy power fell, the three great sages' eyes were filled with murderous intent. In their hearts, they were extremely furious. They were great sage, but they were intimidated by an ant. If word got out, how could they survive in the future? Sigh, feeling the surging pressure, Lin Yi did not show the slightest trace of fear. The holy power in his body surged like a volcano that was about to erupt. However, Lin Yi's realm was too low after all. Compared to the supreme saints, his boiling and surging saint energy paled in comparison. It did not even cause a ripple. Seeing this scene, the three great sage frowned and felt extremely surprised. They could not understand what a mere ninth tribulation, half-true saint had that gave him the confidence to speak like this. Phew! Pretentious brat! Their eyes turned cold, and the three great sage did not want to think too much. Under Shui Tianying's urging, they attacked. Biting cold holy power fell on Lin Yi. Crackle! However, before the holy power fell, the sound of thunder suddenly reverberated in the sky. Boom! Boom! Hearing the sudden sound of thunder, the three great sages' hearts inexplicably trembled. When they looked up, they could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. They saw dark clouds rolling in the sky, flashing with lightning constantly bursting out. The vast power contained in the dark clouds seemed to be about to burst at any time. Why is there suddenly thunder? Why does the feeling of this thunder feel so familiar? Frowning slightly, the three great sage, including Shui Tianying, felt the power of the thunder and lightning and were all surprised. Narrowing their eyes, the rolling thunder clouds in the sky converged on them. Crackle! Thunder continued to strike, landing beside Lin Yi and the others. Suddenly, the surrounding soil was split open, and everyone was so frightened that their faces turned pale. Not good, this is the Saint Realm Lightning Tribulation. Damn it! I've been suppressing my cultivation all this time. If the Lightning Tribulation triggers my cultivation and causes the Great Sage's Lightning Tribulation to fall, I'll be in trouble. Suddenly, one of the Great Sage's faces changed dramatically. Shui Tianying and the other two Great Sage retreated a few steps, distancing themselves from the Great Sage. Don't look at me, I'm not the one who triggered the Lightning Tribulation. Damn it! Which bastard is actually undergoing tribulation in a place like this? The Great Sage's face was ashen as he gnashed his teeth. He wanted nothing more than to eat that person alive. But for those who broke through on their own without the help of treasures, after reaching the saint level, every breakthrough of a major realm would be met with a heavenly tribulation. The Lightning Tribulation was not only a test of breaking through, but it was also a process of tempering one's physical body. If one could pass through the lightning tribulation safely, one would gain great benefit. However, even though there were many benefits, not many people were willing to go through the tribulations. It was almost impossible to pass through the lightning tribulation safely. Only 1 in 10,000 geniuses could do this. Therefore, when most people were close to breaking through to the saint or great sage level, they would use the aura of treasures and treasures of heaven and earth to conceal their breakthrough. Very few people dared to trigger the lightning tribulation in the saint level. Rumble! Thunder continued to rumble as bolt after bolt of lightning struck Lin Yi, frightening Xue Tianying and the other 3 great sage. The 4 of them had not experienced the great sage's lightning tribulation before. Now that the lightning tribulation had appeared and sensed their aura, it was very likely that the lightning tribulation of the great sage level would descend. If they were also involved, the power of this lightning tribulation would be incomparably powerful. Perhaps it could directly turn the 4 of them into ashes. Damn it! So it's this kid who's undergoing the lightning tribulation. Is he crazy? Hiss. Not only is he courting death, but he's also trying to drag us down with him. At this time, Xue Tianying and the others finally realized that the lightning tribulation was triggered by Lin Yi. That's right. When being chased by the 4 great sage, Lin Yi would not be able to escape even with the help of Biluo's power unless he used the forbidden state. However, that state was not something that could be used at will. Lin Yi hesitated for a moment and decided to use the lightning tribulation to deal with them. Therefore, Lin Yi ran all the way out until he was out of Sunset City, and there was no one around before he dared to take the tribulation-breaking pill and trigger the lightning tribulation. The lightning tribulation did not disappoint him. Although it was only at the saint level, the lightning was no less powerful than the attacks of the great sage level experts. If he was lucky, Lin Yi might be able to use the lightning tribulation to severely injure the 4 great sage and then kill Xue Tianying. Thinking of this, Lin Yi could not help but laugh out loud. I've said it before. If you don't leave, it will be the day of your death. Come on. Laughing, Lin Yi suddenly took a step forward and rushed toward the lone great sage. Damn it. Seeing this, the great sage hurriedly retreated a few steps, not daring to get close to Lin Yi. His level was the most unstable, and it was very likely that the lightning tribulation would sense him. At that time, if the lightning tribulation of the great sage level came down, the 4 of them might really die. This was especially true for Xue Tianying. He cultivated an evil technique, and the lightning tribulation was very harmful to his body. Not to mention the lightning tribulation of the great sage level, even the lightning tribulation of the saint level could kill him. This kid is a madman. When the other 2 great sages saw what was happening, they gritted their teeth, then turned and left. Brother Xue, it's not that we don't want to help you, but it's too dangerous. We don't want the secret anymore. Goodbye. As soon as he finished speaking, the 2 great saints prepared to leave. Hearing this, Xue Tianying's face turned pale, and his heart was filled with anger. However, before he could reply, Lin Yi chased after them. His figure flashed, and he appeared in front of them with the lightning tribulation. Since you're here, why didn't you leave when I asked you to? Now, stay here. With the corners of his mouth curled up, Lin Ye's body suddenly hit the 2 of them, and then quickly bounced away. In the next moment, the lightning tribulation flashed on the 2 of them, bursting out like sparks. Oh no. Motherf ***, that kid is simply a lunatic. He's crazy. Feeling the lightning tribulation, the 2 great sages' faces suddenly turned pale. Their legs went weak, and they almost knelt on the ground. Rumble. This time, the 2 black clouds were thicker and more oppressive than before. The power contained in them was even more shocking. Rumble. 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 All of a sudden, countless bolts of lightning, each as thick as a person and glittering with different colors, came crashing down like raindrops toward the 2 great sages. Crackle. 50 chapters for tomorrow. Thank you for your support. End of chapter. Chapter 591. Crackle! Boom! Boom! Bolts of lightning as thick as a person flickered with 7-colored light as they fell like raindrop. A strong force reverberated, causing the entire space to tremble. In an instant, even within Sunset City, one could clearly feel the violent, destructive aura. Not only that, but Sunset City also shook violently, as if there was an earthquake. For a moment, everyone in Sunset City panicked. They looked up and saw that in the sky not far away, it was as if the heavens and earth were splitting apart and lightning was destroying the world. Hiss! What's going on? It looks like lightning. Impossible, right? How can lightning be so powerful? Even the Sunset City is shaking. Within Sunset City, everyone was stunned. Looking at the lightning filled with a deathly aura, they were incomparably shocked. They did not dare to imagine that there would be such a powerful lightning bolt in the world. Within Sunset City, no matter what realm they were at, anyone who was flying in the air was suppressed by the power of the lightning and could not stay in the air at all. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, dozens of figures appeared in different corners of Sunset City. Looking at the 7-colored lightning, their expressions were extremely solemn. Even in the secret location of Cebu Gakuen, the faces of the elders were ashen. From the looks of it, it seems to be the lightning tribulation of the great sage realm. If it is successfully passed, it means that a heavenly saint realm expert has appeared in Sunset City. Hiss! Sunset City can exist, but a heavenly saint realm expert must not appear in Sunset City. Everyone, head to the outer city. We must find news of that person who broke through. While the people of Sunset City were watching the lightning tribulation in shock, Lin Yi sat cross-legged in the middle of the sea of lightning and began to cultivate. Roar! Behind Lin Yi, a divine dragon danced, crazily absorbing the lightning energy in the air. As long as the lightning fell and wreaked havoc, before it could harm Lin Yi, it would be forcefully absorbed by it, and then absorb the essence of the lightning. Lin Yi circulated the divine dragon's 9 transformations with all his might, allowing the Nirvana divine dragon to absorb the lightning energy. As for himself, he began to cultivate and continued to comprehend the divine will cultivation method that he had obtained previously. With the protection of the annihilation divine dragon transformation, the lightning could not harm him at all. As for Xue Tianying and the other 3 great sage, they were all covered in wounds. They were lying on the ground, twitching and waiting for the lightning to torture them. As for Xue Tianying, with his evil cultivation technique, he couldn't even withstand 10 thunderbolts. He was turned into ashes and disappeared in front of Lin Yi. Even his spatial ring had been shattered, and the treasures inside had completely disappeared. Time passed by slowly. As night fell, the lightning continued to fall crazily, shaking the entire land. Under the illumination of the lightning, Sunset City was still as bright as day. Everyone was observing the lightning with rapt attention, unwilling to leave. Late at night, Lin Yi, who had successfully comprehended another divine sense cultivation method, quietly exited his cultivation state. Stretching his waist, Lin Yi lightly snapped his fingers, and a bolt of lightning immediately appeared in his hand. At this moment, every inch of Lin Ye's skin contained lightning arcs and was filled with lightning. Lin Ye's realm had finally stepped into the Saint realm, stabilizing at the early stage of the Saint realm. The Annihilation Divine Dragon transformation had not yet reached the large success stage, but the lightning contained within it was shocking. This caused Lin Yi to be rather flabbergasted. The Nirvana Divine Dragon transformation had absorbed all the lightning in the Heavenly Thunder realm, and then it had successively absorbed the lightning tribulation of a saint and 4 great saint, so why had it still not been cultivated to perfection? In fact, Lin Yi had only cultivated to the Azure Dragon transformation, but last time, he had absorbed too much lightning energy, and the other transformations were unable to absorb lightning. Only then did Lin Yi reach the heavens in a single bound and cultivate the annihilation divine dragon transformation, which had already disrupted the entire process of the cultivation method. In addition, Lin Ye's physical strength was not enough, so the annihilation divine dragon transformation would crazily devour all the power that could strengthen its own strength. If Lin Yi wanted to cultivate to the next level, he had to reach a certain level of strength and realm. In addition, when he broke through to the Saint realm, Lin Ye's divine sense had also increased, breaking through to the 57th level. Lin Ye's strength had been greatly improved again. Even if he did not use his divine sense, ordinary peak saints were no longer his match. If he used his divine sense, even invincible saints could fight head-on, unlike before, when he still needed to launch a sneak attack. The lightning continued to fall, splitting the trees and earth around Lin Yi. Immediately, it turned into pure saint power and flowed into Lin Ye's body. Not far away, the three great sage were charred black, and only their bones were left. They could not be more dead. Seeing this, Lin Yi shook his head slightly and sighed in his heart. His original intention was only to kill Xue Tianying, but the three of them insisted on interfering. He had no choice but to activate the power of the thunder tribulation and send them on their way. He snapped his fingers, and in an instant, the dark clouds in the sky dispersed, and the lightning gradually dissipated. At this time, the four great sage were all dead, and he had successfully broken through, so the thunder tribulation naturally did not exist anymore. Slowly getting up, Lin Yi arranged the skeletons of the three great sage, took off the storage rings in their hands, and moved the things inside into the ninefold space. This time, in order to kill Xue Tianying, the Taishan shield was almost destroyed, and the supreme sacred armor was broken. The price was too high. Your things will be the compensation. With a low voice, Lin Yi did not even count the spoils of war, and slowly walked back to Sunset City. If he did not go back now, the Yu family would be in an uproar. However, after Lin Yi dispersed the thunder tribulation, the Yu family was not in an uproar, but the entire Sunset City was in an uproar. Almost every force sent dozens of people out of Sunset City to look for the person who had gone through the thunder tribulation. Only the Yu family did not. Everyone in the Yu family was looking for Lin Yi. When Lin Yi returned to the market, the Yu family was in an uproar. The guards in the family hurriedly moved out to pass the news to Yu Menglin and the others. Lin Yi had nothing to do, so he simply walked into the depths of the courtyard, wanting to find out what was going on. This time, the power of his divine sense had been improved, and he had become a saint. Lin Yi was confident that he could figure out what was going on in the ancestral hall. However, before Lin Yi could enter the inner courtyard, Shen Qingyun appeared in front of him. "Junior brother, I didn't expect you to be so bold." As soon as Shen Qingyun appeared, she looked at Lin Yi with a strange expression. Slightly raising his eyebrows, Lin Yi looked at Shen Qingyun curiously. "I didn't expect you to have the guts to find trouble with Xue Tianying alone." Shen Qingyun said faintly. "Four great sage chased after you alone, but in the end you came out unscathed." Chapter 592. Hearing Shen Qingyun's words, Lin Ye's expression turned serious. He looked at Shen Qingyun and said in a low voice, "Have you been following me?" "Not really. I'm just curious about what you're going to do." Shen Qingyun shook her head and said, "Don't worry, I won't say anything about this. I'm just a little surprised. How did you survive the lightning tribulation unscathed? Back then, when I was breaking through, the lightning tribulation of the Sage realm almost killed me. If it weren't for my master's protection, I would have died long ago. But you were able to survive the lightning tribulation of the Great Sage realm. I'm very curious." Hearing this, Lin Yi was silent for a moment. Suddenly, he smiled and said, "I have a special immunity to lightning. As for the specific reason, I can't tell you." Shin Qingyun curled her lips. Her eyes flashed as she stared at Lin Yi. She looked quite bitter. Lin Ye's eyes were fixed on his nose was fixed on his mouth, and his mouth was fixed on his heart. After a long time, Shin Qingyun sighed and said, Elder Bai is here. Hurry back. There's something important to discuss. Elder Bai is here. What about me? Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and could not help but feel conflicted. If Yu Menglin and the others were safe in the Yu family, he could leave after giving orders. He did not expect that Yu Menglin and the others would run out to look for him. Now that he could not contact them, it was troublesome. If he left again, he would have to spend a lot more effort to find Yu Menglin and the others. Can you wait a little longer? Lin Yi looked at Shin Qingyun in surprise. No. Shin Qingyun's face turned serious. Is the school's business more important or the Yu family's business? What's more, I never do things that don't benefit me. At this point, Shin Qingyun snorted coldly and sniffed. She looked quite cute. Blinking his eyes, even Lin Yi was shocked by Shin Qingyun. Shortly after, Lin Yi said helplessly, Senior Apprentice Sister Shin, what do you think I should do to stall for a while longer? Unless you tell me how to safely survive the lightning tribulation? Shin Qingyun blinked. That's simple. Lin Yi said seriously, the next time you transcend the tribulation, bring me along and you'll be fine. If we go through the tribulation together, the lightning tribulation will be even more violent. Shin Qingyun rolled her eyes at Lin Yi and said in a low voice, Well, if you don't want to say it, I won't force you. I only have 2 hours. Any later and I will be scolded by the elders. Shin Qingyun shrugged and walked out of the yard. Touching his nose, Lin Yi hurried to catch up. He chuckled and said, Senior Apprentice Sister Shin, do you know what our next mission is? Nothing more than attending an auction and escorting the items back. But this time, I'm afraid it won't be that simple. Shin Qingyun said in a low voice, In the past few days, we've heard a lot of news. Heavenly Treasures Pavilion seems to be up to something big. Not just Heavenly Treasures Pavilion, but also the strongest forces in all the major cities seem to have joined forces and are plotting something. I even suspect that our secret stronghold in Cebu Gakuen has been discovered. It seems that Luori City is really going to be in chaos. Squinting his eyes, Lin Yi suddenly smiled. If that's the case, I'll add fuel to the fire and make it worse. Then it's up to you, Senior Apprentice Brother. Shin Qingyun covered her mouth and laughed. Senior Apprentice Brother, if you can mess up the situation in Luori City and ruin their plans, you'll get the majority of the points for this mission. Hee, Senior Apprentice Sister, let's wait and see. Oh right, can we exchange points for Saint Stones in this auction? Lin Yi suddenly asked. Due to Biluo's existence, he had to buy more saint herbs related to the soul. He needed Saint Stones. You can exchange, Shin Qingyun said in a low voice. But I don't recommend you to exchange. Basically, the items in the auction can be found in the sacred repository. The real finale items are very expensive and not worth it. Thank you for the reminder. Lin Yi nodded slightly. He didn't take Shin Qingyun's words to heart. He needed a lot of saint herbs, and it was too slow to obtain them from the sacred repository alone. After this, Lin Yi also realized that his strength was not enough. He urgently wanted Biluo to recover so that the next time he encountered a life-and-death crisis, he could still rely on Biluo's strength. At least, he could fight against anyone below the heavenly saint realm. Unlike this time, when a few great sage realm experts forced him to trigger the thunder tribulation. As soon as he walked to the outer courtyard, Yu Menglin and the others returned. Seeing that Lin Yi was safe and sound, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Brother Lin, it's good that you're okay. Young Master Lin, it's good that you're okay. If something had happened to you, we would feel guilty. Yu Menglin and the others hurried forward and carefully looked at Lin Yi. Only then did they feel relieved. I'm fine. Lin Yi said indifferently, Shui Tianying is dead. From today onwards, we don't have to worry about the blood refining sect anymore. If I'm not wrong, the ordinary disciples of the blood refining sect should have left. Sure enough. Hearing this, Yu Menglin and the others were shocked and said, no wonder all the disciples of the blood refining sect ran away. The gate was wide open and there was no one inside. We thought that the blood refining sect was up to something and no one dared to enter. It turns out that it's all thanks to young Master Lin. Yu Menglin and the others were shocked, especially Yu Hongrui and Yu Hongguang. Their eyes were full of horror, and their admiration for Lin Yi was endless. Originally, they wanted to use Lin Yi to slowly increase the strength of the Yu clan so that they could compete with the blood refining sect. They did not expect that Lin Yi would destroy the blood refining sect directly. This was a great thing for them. Lin Ye's expression did not change in the face of Yu Hongrui and the others' admiration. He said indifferently, before the other forces react, quickly take control of the blood refining sect and search for things. Take away 6/10 of the resources inside. Don't touch the remaining 4/10. If I can reach the blood refining sect tonight, I'll take them all. If I can't, leave the remaining 4/10 and let the other forces fight for it. Don't stay in the blood refining sect. Yes, young Master Lin. We'll send someone now. Yu Hongrui and the others were ecstatic and quickly ordered their men to search the blood refining sect. The blood refining sect was a pinnacle force with abundant resources. Naturally, they were extremely excited. Only Yu Menglin stepped forward and looked at Lin Yi worriedly. She whispered, Big brother Lin, are you leaving? The elders are here, so I have to go back. Lin Yi said in a deep voice, Don't worry, I'll be back after I'm done. I'll leave the Yu clan to you for the next 2 days. Okay. Yu Menglin smiled happily when she heard that Lin Yi would be back. Her eyes were filled with joy. Genius memorized this site's address in a second. Human mobile version reading website. Chapter 593. After giving instructions, Shen Qingyun left with Lin Yi and rushed to the Cebu Gakuan base. As soon as they arrived at the base's entrance, Wei walked out with a haggard face. Sir! Wei quickly knelt when he saw Lin Yi. Slightly raising his brows, Lin Yi helped Wei up and asked in confusion, What happened to you? Did you encounter any danger? No. Wei panicked. He quickly waved his hand and said, I'm just a little tired these past 2 days. By the way, sir, I've almost finished investigating the news in the East District. When should I report it to you? The blood refining sect has been destroyed and the other forces have begun to take action. Rolling his eyes, Lin Yi stared at Wei. Seeing the flustered look on Wei's face, he immediately understood that Wei was lying. This made Lin Yi very surprised. Why would Wei lie to him with such a bad expression? Rubbing his nose, Lin Yi said in a deep voice, The Yu family will soon go to the blood refining sect to receive resources. Bring some people to help them. Don't be too obvious, but you must protect the Yu family. Yes, sir. Wei lightly nodded and quickly left. Rubbing his chin, Lin Yi whispered, Strange. This guy must be hiding something from me. Why don't you ask him tomorrow? Rolling her eyes at Lin Yi, Shen Qingyun pulled Lin Ye's hand and directly entered the base. Inside the base, it was quiet. Shen Qingyun led Lin Yi and turned left and right until they arrived at a secret room. When they opened the door, the room was already full of people. Peng Tianyu, Qing Yang, and a few others were also present. Even elderly Moyun was sitting there obediently. Flawless White sat on the main seat with a dignified expression. Seeing Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun return, Flawless White immediately glared at the two and said in a low voice, I sent you here to carry out the mission, but you actually took the initiative to participate in the struggle between the forces. Ah! Shen Qingyun stuck out her tongue and walked into the secret room, ignoring Flawless White's anger. Lin Yi, on the other hand, smiled and said, Elder Bai, I'm also doing this to reduce your workload. Since we're going to attack the Sunset City, It's better to let them fight among themselves. It's good. Phew, you too. With a sigh, Bai Wuxiao was not really angry. He continued to talk about the mission with the others. Lin Yi and the others' next task was very simple. After the auction ended, they had to escort the auction items back to the inner court. That was it. They didn't need to participate in the rest. In fact, Cebu Gakuen didn't even need to auction anything. The Sky Treasure Pavilion's auctions didn't even catch the eye of Cebu Gakuen. However, in order to give the students a chance to train, they still chose to auction. Furthermore, they didn't want to reveal their identity and strength. After the auction ended, they would reveal the information about the student. This way, there would be many fugitives fighting over the treasures to train the Cebu Gakuen disciples. This was Cebu Gakuen's tradition. If not for Lin Yi, Shin Qingyun and the others would still follow this procedure. However, they never expected that Lin Yi would participate in the struggle between the forces of Sunset City, and even bring Shin Qingyun along. As such, Flawless White and the others had to forcefully stop the mission. After knowing the mission, Shin Qingyun was completely dispirited. Lin Yi was also shocked. That's right. Flawless White didn't give Lin Yi a chance to refute and quickly changed the topic. Lin Yi, can you take out the egg you obtained last time? Not yet. Lin Yi shook his head and said, that egg is now in my sea of consciousness. I can't take it out. Then, can you use your divine sense to simulate the egg for me? Also, what's special about it? Flawless White frowned slightly. He knew that Lin Yi had many secrets, so he didn't suggest entering his sea of consciousness to investigate. Of course, Lin Shui used his divine sense to draw the outline of the egg. Elder Bai, that egg has now comprehended 5 types of laws. The corner of Lin Ye's mouth twitched. He was quite surprised. He didn't expect that in just a few days, the egg would attract 2 more types of laws. Hiss, as soon as he said that, even Flawless White couldn't suppress the shock in his heart. Li Moyin's expression changed drastically, and he blurted out, it's not even born yet, and it's already attracted 5 types of laws? Heavens, what kind of monster is that? That's right, in Li Moyin's heart, that egg was definitely a monster. Ordinary spirit beasts, even if they were born rulers or the son of a demon emperor, could only attract 2 to 3 types of laws at most. Now, an egg had attracted 5 types of laws before it was born. Perhaps it could attract more in the future. How could he not be shocked? Flawless White narrowed his eyes and suddenly said, I think I know its identity. What identity? Seeing the drastic change in Li Moyin's expression and Flawless White's solemn face, Peng Tianyu and the others were surprised. They turned to look at Flawless White. If I'm not wrong, that should be an auspicious beast. Only auspicious beasts can comprehend several types of laws before they're born. Moreover, auspicious beasts don't have a specific race. Even a cat demon can become an auspicious sign. Auspicious beast. Upon hearing this name, Lin Yi, Shin Qingyun, and the others looked at each other, their eyes full of confusion. It was the first time they heard this name. Auspicious beasts are legendary divine beasts. You can't come into contact with them yet. Flawless White suddenly dragged Lin Yi out of the secret room and said in a low voice, Lin Yi, can you lend your auspicious sign to the school for a while? Don't worry, the reward will definitely satisfy you. Elder Bai, it's not that I don't agree, but Lin Yi said with a wry smile, now, that egg doesn't want to come out and is staying in my sea of consciousness. I'm afraid it can only come out after it's born. It's okay, this matter is not urgent. Flawless White said with a smile, then we'll talk about it later. Phew, here are 2 million points. After returning to the school, I'll allow you to enter the Inner Yard's sacred depository and choose a treasure within 10 million points. Elder Bai, can the points be exchanged for holy stones? Lin Yi grinned and said, isn't there an auction in a few days? I plan to buy some sacred medicine. Why are you using holy stones to buy sacred medicine? Hearing this, Flawless White glanced at Lin Yi strangely and said in a low voice, "In the sacred depository, the sacred medicine's quality is much higher than in the auction, and the price is also discounted. Buying it here is purely a waste of money." Elder, the cultivation technique I'm practicing is quite special. There are many sacred medicines related to the soul. Lin Yi shrugged helplessly and said with a sigh, "Sacred medicines related to the soul are hard to come by. Even in the school, there aren't many. Therefore, since I've come across it, I have to buy it." "There's such a cultivation technique?" Flawless White raised his eyebrows and suddenly relaxed. "Very good, it seems like you really didn't follow Qin Dao Xian. Baidu search Dong 81 Chinese Networko. No advertising message." Chapter 594. Very good, looks like you really didn't follow Qin Dao Xian. As soon as he finished speaking, the corner of Lin Ye's mouth twitched violently. He didn't expect that Flawless White would still be conflicted about this until now. Without waiting for Lin Yi to reply, Flawless White smiled and said, "Lin Yi, although you've only been in the academy for a short period of time, your contributions are not small. Let me tell you the truth. Although the academy belongs to everyone, there are still many factions. Qin Dao Xian belongs to another faction. If you follow him, I'm afraid many people won't let you have a good life. I hope that you can be neutral in the future. If it weren't for my identity, I wouldn't want to join any faction." Sigh. At this point, Flawless White couldn't help but sigh and reveal a helpless expression. Lin Yi stared at Flawless White for a moment before nodding. "Forget it, let's not talk too much about these things." Flawless White took out a storage ring and handed it to Lin Yi. He said in a deep voice, "There are 100 million saint stones in here. I'm in the academy all year round, so these things are useless to me. They're all yours. As for the points, I'll give them to you when we return. Otherwise, you'll be stupid and exchange them for saint stones." With that, Flawless White yawned and turned to leave. Lin Ye's entire person was stunned on the spot, the corner of his mouth twitching fiercely. 100 million saint stones, what kind of concept was that? The Yu family was still worried about hundreds of thousands or millions of saint stones, but Flawless White casually threw 100 million to him. The difference was simply too great. Lin Yi didn't argue and accepted the 100 million saint stones with excitement in his heart. With this 100 million saint stones, he didn't have to worry about not being able to bid for the sacred medicine. No matter how expensive the sacred medicine was, it couldn't be worth this price. After putting it away, Lin Yi entered the secret room again. This time, it was Elder Li Moyun who instructed them on their next move. In an instant, Lin Yi could not help but have a headache. He did not want to stay here forever. However, with Flawless White around, Lin Yi couldn't say much. A moment later, the arrangements were made. Flawless White and Li Moyun left, leaving only Lin Yi and the others. "Lin Yi, what did Elder Bai tell you just now?" As soon as Flawless White left, Peng Tianyu came over curiously. Peng Tianyu wasn't the only one who was curious. Qing Yang, Hong Ling, and the others were also looking at Lin Yi with eyes full of doubt. "Nothing." Lin Yi smiled and said, "I asked about the egg specifically. It's definitely not that simple, right?" Peng Tianyu smirked and suddenly said, "I have a feeling that Elder Bai is very indulgent towards you. If other people dared to mess around like this, they would have been scolded long ago." "Alright, don't ask too much." Shen Qingyun suddenly said, "Peng Tianyu, Qing Yang, the two of you, help us out later." "Help you?" Hearing this, Peng Tianyu, Qing Yang, and the others couldn't help but be surprised. "That's right." Shen Qingyun grabbed Lin Yi and turned her head to ask, "Are you going to help?" "Of course." Seeing Shen Qingyun reveal her two small canine teeth, Peng Tianyu and the others agreed without hesitation. What a joke. If they didn't help, Shen Qingyun would play them to death. In the past few days, they had been tortured by Shen Qingyun many times. Cheng Yang and the others didn't even want to enter the inner yard. If they were still tortured by Shen Qingyun every day in the inner yard, they might as well just die. Wait a moment. The two of you go and find Elder by an elderly to ask some questions. Shen Qingyun supported her cheeks with both hands and said, any reason will do. Just delay them for an hour. An hour? Hearing this, Cheng Yang and the others instantly wailed. It was still okay to delay them for a cup of tea, but an hour was simply too much. The four of you can split the time. It won't take long. Shen Qingyun yawned and said unhappily, if you are not willing, then forget it. Cough cough, I'm willing. I'm willing. Peng Tianyu, Cheng Yang, and the others quickly nodded. Peng Tianyu and the others would rather chat awkwardly with the elder than let Shen Qingyun stay by their side, especially when Shen Qingyun was bored. Seeing this scene, the corners of Lin Ye's mouth couldn't help but twitch. He was quite surprised in his heart. He didn't think that Shen Qingyun would be so lethal to Peng Tianyu and the others. If the elder asks about us, just say that we went into seclusion together. Then why aren't you going? Shen Qingyun raised her eyebrows and suddenly stood up. In the next moment, Peng Tianyu and the others were like mice that met a cat and escaped with a swoosh. TSK. Lin Yi praised, Senior Shen, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. Mocking me? Shen Qingyun glanced at Lin Yi and said, do you still want to go out? Cough cough, yes. Lin Yi smiled and said, Senior Shen also wants to go out? Do you think I can stay in that kind of boring place? Shen Qingyun raised her eyebrows and immediately waved her hand and said, I've been walking around Sunset City for the past few days. Then where should we go? Lin Yi blinked. Follow me. Shen Qingyun pulled Lin Ye's hand and rushed to her room. After arriving at the room, Shen Qingyun blocked the door and lifted the bedboard. A tunnel appeared in front of them. SSS. Senior Shen, you're so strong? Lin Yi looked down and couldn't help but feel his scalp go numb. In order to get out, Shen Qingyun actually broke the protective formation of the base. She was indeed worthy of the title of Little Witch. Even Lin Yi didn't have such thoughts. Hee, how is it? Shen Qingyun said proudly. This place is their blind spot and can't be monitored. We can go out quietly and then come back. Then come back quietly. Aren't you afraid that the people outside will come in through this? Lin Yi asked in surprise. There's a supreme artifact outside. Unless it's me, no one can pass through. Shen Qingyun smiled and said, Don't think that you're the only one with a supreme artifact. Okay, let's go out. After saying that, Shen Qingyun pulled Lin Yi and directly jumped in and walked out along the edge of the formation. In less than 10 minutes, a light screen appeared in front of them. After passing through the light screen, the world in front of them changed, and they were already at a deserted street corner. Done. Shen Qingyun pinched her face and changed her appearance again. She immediately asked, Junior Shen, are you going to the blood refining sect to find the Yu family? Yes, the Yu family's matter hasn't been arranged yet. I have to go. Lin Yi said in a deep voice, Senior Shen, you have fun first. I'm going. After saying that, Lin Yi looked in the direction and quickly rushed to the blood refining sect. At this time, night had not fallen yet. He could still make it if he rushed over. Not long after he flew out, Lin Yi felt Shen Qingyun following behind him. The corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. Chapter 595. Senior Sister. Why are you following me? After a long time, Lin Yi stopped and turned to look at Shen Qingyun. His face was full of helplessness. After all, Shen Qingyun was not one of them. There were some things that he could not let Shen Qingyun know. Shen Qingyun blinked and suddenly said, It's on the way. Senior Sister, where are you going? Shall I send you there first? Lin Yi shrugged his shoulders. Hearing this, Shen Qingyun hesitated for a moment. Suddenly, her big watery eyes flashed and she said softly, Wherever you go, I will go. Puff. Hearing Shin Qingyun's words, Lin Yi was shocked and almost spat out a mouthful of blood. If Lin Yi believed Shin Qingyun, then there was really something wrong. Senior sister, I still have business to do. Can I play with you in a few days? Lin Yi looked at Shin Qingyun sincerely. No. Shin Qingyun crossed her arms and said in a deep voice, I helped you out. You have to take me with you. The corner of his mouth twitched. Lin Yi was at his wits' end. This time, he really relied on Shin Qingyun to come out. Phew, then you follow me and don't talk nonsense. Lin Yi had to agree. Seeing that Shin Qingyun was about to go berserk, he did not want to go back. Don't worry, I won't cause trouble. Shin Qingyun smiled, revealing 2 small canine teeth. She looked particularly cute. Lin Yi, who was familiar with Shin Qingyun's character, could not help but sigh. After comforting Shin Qingyun, Lin Yi sped up. In less than a quarter of an hour, Lin Yi and Shin Qingyun arrived above the blood refining sect. At this moment, the blood refining sect was surrounded by thousands of people. They were divided into several groups and surrounded the blood refining sect. As for inside the blood refining sect, the Yu clan was guarding the place, relying on the rules of the Sunset City to intimidate the crowd. In the broken main hall, Yu Menglin and the others were frantically investigating the secrets of the blood refining sect. Luckily, I'm not late. Seeing this scene, Lin Yi could not help but let out a long sigh of relief. There must be many secrets in the blood refining sect. Otherwise, it would not have attracted so many people to help him. Since he had come, no one else should even think about getting their hands on the secrets of the blood refining sect. With this in mind, Lin Yi flew into the blood refining sect with Shin Qingyun. When the Yu clan guards saw Lin Yi, they saluted one after another, their faces full of joy. Originally, they were a little nervous when facing the forces of the entire East District. However, after seeing Lin Yi, they were no longer nervous and even straightened their back. Guard it well. Nodding slightly, Lin Yi did not enter the blood refining sect. Instead, he turned around and looked at the crowd, sizing them up. At the same time, these people were also sizing up Lin Yi. Only a small number of people recognized Lin Yi, and they all passed on information about Lin Yi. Wait a minute. That guy seems to be the young man who fought with Xue Tianying alone that day? It really is him. Oh my God, he's not dead? That's impossible. That day, 4 great Sage Realm powerhouses were chasing after him. How could he still be alive? Soon, some people recognized Lin Yi. In an instant, their expressions changed drastically. It was already commendable that Huang Xiaolong could fight against a great sage. How could a mere 9th tribulation half-true saint escape from 4 great Sage Realm powerhouses? That was a fantasy. Something's not right. After that day there was lightning outside the city. Xue Tianying, Guan Shanyue, and the others never came back. Hiss. Could it be that he killed all of them? This shouldn't be possible, right? He's just a 9th tribulation half-true saint. No matter how strong he is, he can't kill a great Sage Realm expert, right? No, his aura has already reached the true saint realm. Whispers sounded continuously. Following their discussions, the crowd looked at Lin Yi with fear in their eyes. Even the disciples of the major forces couldn't help but take a few steps back. Forces of their level only had 1 or 2 great Sage Realm experts. If Lin Yi could really escape from 4 great Sage Realm experts, they wouldn't dare to step forward. For a moment, everyone's hearts were filled with fear towards Lin Yi. Sensing this, Lin Yi couldn't help but smile. He took a step forward and took a deep breath. The blood refining gate has been destroyed by my Yu family. This is now the Yu family's territory. Please leave quickly. His loud and clear voice was like a sound wave that suddenly spread out. If you don't leave, don't blame me for being merciless. Crash! As the biting cold voice fell, the crowd, including some peak saints, staggered back a few steps. Their faces were filled with shock and uncertainty. It had to be said that Lin Ye's lethality was too great. Although Lin Yi was only an early-stage saint, he had defeated Shueziyu, killed Mo Pinying, and defeated Xue Tianying. It could be said that he was famous in the Sunset City. "Why aren't you scramming?" Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and shouted in a low voice. In an instant, a strong sound wave rippled and erupted with a powerful force. It instantly sent some people below the mid-stage saint realm flying. Even those late-stage saint realm experts were unable to maintain their balance, and they were almost blown away by the sound wave. For a moment, the sound of people gasping could be heard. Only then did everyone realize that Lin Ye's strength was really as powerful as the rumors said. Just a cold snort could send so many people flying. If he really made a move, even an invincible saint would not be a match for him. Thinking of this, the crowd didn't dare to stay any longer and left. Chapter 596. When he suddenly heard that voice, Lin Ye's eyebrows twitched. He lifted his head to look, only to see a figure walking side by side in the air, flying over from afar. "Protector Hong is here!" Phew, thank the heavens! Protector Hong is finally here. So it's Tiger Hong. With Tiger Hong here, we should be able to gain some benefit. The 100 or so people were overjoyed when they saw the newcomer. Tiger Hong, the second in command of the Golden Dragon League, had the strength of an invincible saint. He was only one step away from the great sage. Interesting, Lin Ye's lips curled into a disdainful smile when he heard the whispers of the crowd. If the newcomer was the great sage, he would be a little wary. If it was just an invincible saint, there was nothing to be afraid of. Whether it was him or Shen Qingyun, dealing with an invincible saint was a piece of cake. "Who are you? Why should I tell you?" Lin Yi sized up Tiger Hong with a mocking look. Tiger Hong was instantly enraged. His eyes widened as he glared at Lin Yi. "Humph!" Tiger Hong snorted and said, "Don't think that you're a match for us invincible saints just because you killed Mo Pinying with a sneak attack. You're just an early-stage saint. Coupled with the power of your divine sense, you're no match for us." "I'm no match?" Lin Yi suddenly burst out laughing. Shen Qingyun looked at Tiger Hong with a strange expression. Sunset City, to put it nicely, was a city of chaos. It was quite powerful, but to put it bluntly, it was a country bumpkin. To put it bluntly, every disciple of Sibu Gakuin could cross realms and kill the people of Sunset City. Some geniuses could even cross 3 or 4 realms, such as Lin Yi and herself. Tiger Hong was just an invincible saint. How dare he talk to them like that? He was simply courting death. What a joke! Lin Yi suddenly said in a mocking tone, "If I can't do it, why would I have you?" Suddenly hearing this sentence, Hong Laohu couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Everyone was also stunned. They didn't understand Lin Ye's meaning. Shen Qingyun was stunned for a moment. Then, she covered her mouth and chuckled. She patted Lin Yi with her right hand and gave Lin Yi a supercilious look. Even though she had disguised herself, her special charm still caused everyone to fall head over heels for her. "Junior brother, don't be so bad. Don't bully them." Shen Qingyun chuckled and said, "If you do this, my seniority will be too high." "Seniority? Bastard!" At that instant, Hong Laohu and the others finally reacted. They immediately became enraged and clenched their fists tightly, as if they could not wait to attack. "What an uneducated little bastard!" Hong Laohu angrily shouted, "Brat, we've already checked. You're just an outsider. Why are you working for the Yu clan? Originally, we wanted to let you go, but since you're courting death, don't blame us for being impolite." As soon as his voice fell, Hong Laohu's body spun, and his fists suddenly blasted out. Roar! A tiger's roar suddenly rang out. 2 streaks of Saint Force turned into giant tigers. They waved their sharp claws, opened their bloody mouths, and suddenly attacked Lin Yi. Small fry. The corner of Lin Ye's mouth curled up. He stretched out his right index finger, and the next moment, the shadow of a golden index finger bloomed. The power of divine sense burst out and wrapped around the shadow of the index finger. Destructive finger, level 7. 1. The shadow of the golden index finger burst out a powerful force like thunder and suddenly crushed the two giant tigers into nothingness. Then, the remaining shadow of the index finger violently pointed at Hong Laohu's body. Bam! Almost at the moment when the shadow of the index finger touched Hong Laohu, the surging force was like a giant hammer hitting Hong Laohu's chest, and instantly sent him flying. Gasp! Seeing this scene, the people who were cheering for Hong Laohu were stunned. They immediately closed their eyes and could not bear to watch anymore. Rumble! Hong Laohu's body flew out directly like a kite with a broken string. It was extremely miserable. After landing on the ground, Hong Laohu felt that his bones were about to fall apart. He was in so much pain that he could not even get up. Hearing the shrill scream, the people could not help but tremble slightly and step back a few steps. They only felt numb all over their bodies. Protector! Protector! Only the disciples of the Golden Dragon League hurried forward and helped Hong Laohu up. I'll give you one last chance. You have 10 breaths to get lost. A cold voice quietly echoed in the air. If you don't get lost, only a dead end will be left. Swoosh! This time, with Hong Laohu as an example, those forces did not dare to stay any longer and left one after another. As they left, they glanced at Lin Yi from time to time. In addition to fear, there was also respect in their eyes. Gasp! He's too powerful. He's only at the early stage of the Saint realm, but he can defeat an invincible saint with one move. It seems that the rumor that he defeated Xue Tianying is true. How can he be so powerful? Gosh, he's only at the early stage of the Saint realm, but he can exert the strength of the great sage. Even the disciples of Sibu Gakuin can't be stronger than him. His talent is really terrifying. As the voices became weaker, the group completely left. Only the disciples of the Yu family were left in the blood refining gate. Lord Lin is mighty. Lord Lin is mighty. A few of the Yu clan's guards suddenly shouted. Their eyes were filled with burning flames as they looked at Lin Yi. It was as if they were looking at a god. In other words, in their hearts, Lin Yi was a god. Haha, you guys guard well. When you go back, you'll all be seriously injured. After comforting the guards with a smile, Lin Yi walked toward the blood refining gate with Shen Qingyun. As soon as they entered the blood refining gate, Yu Hongguang came up to them with a smile. Young Master Lin is really domineering. We saw it from afar. Hong Laohu is really reckless. He even dares to disobey you. You don't have to flatter me. Lin Yi grinned and asked directly, how's the harvest? 300,000 inscription sacred artifacts, 10,000 inscription sacred artifacts, 600 bottles of sacred elixir pills, countless cultivation techniques and manuals. Yu Hongguang was very excited. 13 million sacred stones and many other treasures. The blood refining gate is really rich. By the way, young Master Lin, there's no divine will cultivation technique in the blood refining gate. Lin Yi nodded slightly and said thoughtfully, the Yu family will digest these things. Everyone will be rewarded for their contributions and punished for their mistakes. Keep the holy stones and buy some slaves or resources for cultivation. By the way, if you find the blood soul heaven fusion technique, don't practice it. Just give it to me. Blood soul heaven fusion technique? Yu Hongguang blinked and said in a deep voice, I'll go and ask if anyone has seen the blood soul heaven fusion technique. After saying that, Yu Hongguang turned and left. Lin Yi looked around and saw that the crowd was still searching. Yu Menglin was fishing around the blood pool with some people. Lin Ye's eyes turned and he immediately led Shen Qingyun around. Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. Human mobile version reading website. Chapter 597. While walking around, Lin Yi asked Biluo to sense where there was a secret room around. After walking for a while, Biluo immediately stopped. Before Lin Yi had time to ask Biluo, he heard Shin Qingyun say, "There seems to be something underground." Hearing this, Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and couldn't help but look at Shin Qingyun in confusion. In the sea of consciousness, Biluo also said in surprise, "This little girl can actually sense something underground?" Rolling his eyes, Lin Yi looked at Shin Qingyun and asked in a deep voice, "Senior Sister Shin, you said there's something underground? Are you sure?" "Of course I'm sure." Shin Qingyun grinned and said, "I was born with a sensitive perception. I can guarantee that there must be another world under our feet." Frowning slightly, in Lin Ye's sea of consciousness, Biluo also said softly, "This little girl is right. Last time, I didn't notice it. This time, after knowing that the blood refining sect habitually hid things underground, I paid more attention and found that there were fluctuations underground." After hearing Biluo's words, Lin Yi couldn't help but gasp. Biluo could sense it because her soul was extremely powerful. Shin Qingyun was only in the invincible saint realm, but she could sense it, which was surprising. "Can you open it?" Lin Yi suddenly asked. According to Zhuo Baoyang's experience last time, to open the formation, a specific number of people and actions were needed. "Isn't it easy to open this?" The corners of Shin Qingyun's mouth curled up as she grinned. She immediately waved her right hand and summoned a long saber. "Are you going to cut it open directly?" Looking at the flickering cold light on the long saber, Lin Yi couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. He was even more puzzled. It was the first time he had seen someone open the secret room like this. "What's wrong? Can't I?" Shin Qingyun shot a glance at Lin Yi. Then, her expression suddenly changed. The long saber in her right hand suddenly fell, and chopped down at a very special angle. Buzz! The long saber swept past, and the sharp blade immediately cut open the array formation. Bang! Along with the dust flying everywhere, a huge hole suddenly appeared in the ground. Lin Yi was not careful and almost fell in. "Done." Shin Qingyun put away her saber and clapped her hands. With a smile on her face, she pointed at the hole and said, "Jump down and you will be in the secret room." "Your method is really unique," Lin Yi exclaimed in admiration. "Of course." Shin Qingyun smiled proudly and said, "It's just a secret room and an array formation. 1 slash is enough." Lin Yi tilted his head and glanced at Shin Qingyun. Suddenly, he smiled and his eyes were filled with gentleness. Hey, why are you looking at me?" Suddenly feeling the gentleness in Lin Ye's eyes, Shin Qingyun panicked and became shy. She couldn't help biting her lips, which looked quite cute. "Nothing, I just feel that senior sister is too awesome." After praising, Lin Yi did not hesitate and directly jumped into the secret room. As soon as the secret room was opened, Biluo had already checked it and found that there was no danger inside. "So anxious? Why don't you check whether there is any danger?" "This idiot!" After complaining, Shin Qingyun quickly jumped down after him. But they didn't notice that not far away, a figure was silently watching them. After entering the secret room, there was not a strong smell of blood. Lin Yi looked around and found that it was just a stone room. There were some cultivation methods on it, all of which were the blood-soul heaven-melting technique. Obviously, in order to control the whole blood-refining sect, Xue Tianying had done a lot of work. In addition to the blood-soul heaven-melting technique, there was another cultivation method, which was also related to blood. Lin Yi was not interested in it at all, so he simply burned it all with fire. After confirming that there was nothing else, Lin Yi jumped up and took Shin Qingyun to look for other secret rooms. Since Shin Qingyun was a free labor, Lin Yi did not want to consume Biluo's strength of soul. It had to be said that Shin Qingyun was very helpful. In just 2 hours they had searched the whole blood refining sect. There were a total of 63 secret rooms, and there were more than 90 blood-soul heaven fusion technique manuals, all of which had been destroyed. There were also 20 cultivation manuals, countless pills, saint stones, and even some saint artifacts. These gains made Yu Menglin and the others happier. Then, in the whole blood refining sect, only the side of the blood pool was left unchecked. Shen Qingyun was tired and did not want to go again. She just looked at Lin Yi indifferently. Ahem, being stared at by Shen Qingyun, Lin Yi could not help but feel embarrassed. No matter what, she was still his senior sister, and she had even helped him escape. In the end, he had become her coolie here, and this made him feel very apologetic. "Junior brother," Shen Qingyun suddenly said, "sing me a song. If you don't sing, I won't go." As soon as his voice fell, everyone in the Yu clan, including Yu Menglin, looked at Lin Yi in surprise. They all wanted to see Lin Yi sing. Yu Hongyang and the others were surprised by Shen Qingyun's identity. They could feel that Yu Menglin was much stronger than them. Although she did not release it, she was like a sleeping dragon, giving people a heart-palpitating aura. This made them more confident in Lin Yi. Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun looked so young, but their strength was comparable to the great sage realm. It was obvious that they had powerful forces behind them. In this way, with Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun supporting them, the Yu clan would not be in trouble. No! Lin Ye's face was pale. He walked to Shen Qingyun's side, and with a thought, a drop of origin source heavenly water appeared. What's this? Shen Qingyun, who was about to make a scene, felt the power of the origin source heavenly water and was stunned. She carefully looked at the drop of origin source heavenly water. Here, this is good stuff. Lin Yi sprinkled the origin source heavenly water. In an instant, Shen Qingyun felt her body shudder, and her mind became clearer. A vigorous life force surged in her body, cleansing her meridians, skin, and blood. In just a few breaths' time, all the fatigue disappeared. Shen Qingyun was full of energy, and the aura in her body was a lot stronger than before. The origin source heavenly water was indeed a godly object. Just a drop of it was enough for Shen Qingyun to be reborn, and her strength and cultivation were a lot more stable. What's this? Blinking her eyes, Shen Qingyun was incomparably shocked. Soon after, she licked her lips and used an extremely greedy gaze to stare at Lin Yi. "Hee, if you help me find it, I'll give you another drop." Lin Yi smiled, tempting Shen Qingyun. How can you do this?" Shen Qingyun pouted and said, "I'm your senior sister. If there's something good, we should share it." "But shouldn't senior sister help junior brother?" Lin Yi shrugged. "You win." Hearing this, Shen Qingyun narrowed her eyes and walked toward the blood pool. In an instant, Lin Yi and the rest of the Yu family turned their attention to Shen Qingyun. After sensing for a while, Shen Qingyun suddenly stretched out her hand and pointed at the blood pool that was flowing with blood. Genius memorized the address of this site in 1 second. Human mobile version reading website. Chapter 598. Guru. Fresh blood flowed out. Shen Qingyun opened her eyes and pointed at the pool of blood. "The secret room is in the pool of blood. Drain the water and you will see it." "What?" Yu Menglin and the rest were stunned when they heard this. Soon after, they were annoyed. The secret rooms that Lin Yi and the rest found were all underground. Therefore, they did not notice the pool of blood. When they were looking for the secret room, they only turned the ground upside down. They did not expect that the secret room here was actually under the pool of blood. It's so hidden. There must be something important in the secret room this time. Taking a deep breath, Lin Yi leaped up. With a thought, the raging flames suddenly turned into a huge fire net that enveloped the entire pool of blood. Beep 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 beep. The raging flames burned and the high temperature scorched the air, causing everyone to take a few steps back. They were unable to get too close. Everyone could only vaguely see the blood gradually turning into red mist under the high temperature and dissipating in the air. In just a quarter of an hour, the raging flames had already dried up the entire pool of blood. Lin Yi dispersed the flames and glanced around. Suddenly, his eyes sparkled. In the middle of the pool of blood, there was a stone door-like thing with a strange rune carved on it. This is the pattern of the blood-soul-heaven fusion technique. Suddenly seeing the pattern, Biluo could not help but say, "Hurry up and stop your senior sister. Don't let her attack. The blood-soul-heaven fusion technique is not a joke." Hearing this, Lin Yi could not help but frown. He was surprised. In his opinion, Shen Qingyun would not be so stupid as to directly attack an unfamiliar and strange formation, right? However, while Lin Yi was in a daze, Shen Qingyun's eyes couldn't help but light up when she saw the strange pattern. Interesting. I have never seen this rune before. Perhaps it is a new formation. Blinking her eyes, Shen Qingyun immediately summoned her long saber. She suddenly jumped up and slashed at the strange pattern. The wind whistled, blowing on Lin Ye's face, instantly waking him up. "Senior Sister Shen, stop!" Feeling a chill in his heart, Lin Ye's figure flashed, and he quickly moved to Shen Qingyun's side. The power of his divine sense erupted, and suddenly turned into a shield, which collided with the long saber with a loud bang. Bang! As the long saber came into contact with the shield formed by the power of spiritual sense, Lin Yi felt a huge force coming out and entering his sea of consciousness in an instant. In the next moment, a powerful force bloomed, and Lin Yi couldn't help but howl. Shen Qingyun was also sent flying by the rebounding force. Her hands were numb, and she almost lost her grip on the long saber in her hand. "Lin Yi, what are you doing?" Shen Qingyun gritted her teeth and said, "I can't stop now. What if I get hurt? It's better for me to get hurt than for you to get hurt." Lin Yi said in a low voice, "This is too ridiculous. This pattern is very strange. Obviously, it is not an ordinary array. Don't break it like this." Hearing Lin Ye's words, Shen Qingyun was slightly stunned, and her whole person was stunned. She didn't expect Lin Yi to say such a sentence. She imagined that Lin Yi would say that she was in the way and reckless, but she didn't expect that Lin Yi would say that she couldn't get hurt. Suddenly, Shen Qingyun's heart flowed with a warm current. "Phew, everyone be careful, back off." Breathing a sigh of relief, Lin Yi jumped into the blood pool and carefully stroked the pattern. Chi. As soon as he touched the pattern, Lin Ye's fingers couldn't help but hurt, as if they were burned. Looking down, his fingertips were already red. Hiss! This seal is indeed strange. With a thought, Lin Yi followed Biluo's instructions and used his mouth to bite open his index finger. Mixing it with Saint power, he outlined a formation in the air. When the formation was completed, a drop of origin source heavenly water fell from the sky and floated above the formation. Boom! In the next moment, an invisible force spread out, and the rune disappeared into thin air like a snowflake. Crack! There was a crisp sound, and the floor separated, revealing a hole. Seeing this, Lin Yi couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. The origin source heavenly water has too many uses, right? Can even break formations. Touching his nose, Lin Yi felt that it was unbelievable. He didn't expect that the origin source heavenly water could break formations. After sensing for a while and confirming that there was no danger in the secret chamber, Lin Yi waved at Shen Qingyun and jumped in. Pada! As soon as he landed, the secret chamber suddenly lit up. Lin Yi looked around and saw that the secret chamber was surrounded by luminous pearls, which were especially bright. There were no bookshelves in this secret chamber, only a desk and a strange sculpture. On the desk there was a secret manual, a sheepskin drawing, and some letters. Lin Yi walked to the desk and flipped through it, but his heart skipped a beat. The letters were full of news about the Yu clan. No wonder they have always been at odds with the Yu clan. No wonder there are other forces eyeing the Yu clan. After reading the news, Lin Yi couldn't help but smile bitterly. The blood-refining sect was chasing the Yu clan because the Yu clan's patriarch had snatched a treasure before he went into seclusion. The treasure was extremely powerful, and it could allow a great sage realm cultivator to directly break through to the next realm. That was why Xue Tianying and the leaders of the other forces were so persistent and wanted to attack the Yu clan. One had to know that the strongest person in the eastern district of Lori City was only at the initial Great Sage realm. Only the leader of the Sky Eagle sect was at the intermediate Great Sage realm. They were naturally tempted by the treasure. No matter who obtained the treasure, their clan would become the second strongest. However, the Yu clan was not to be trifled with. That was why the blood refining sect and the Yu clan had fought for hundreds of years without obtaining the treasure. TSK, it seems that the Yu clan's information inheritance has really been cut off. The Yu clan didn't even mention that they had such a treasure. Or did someone use it? TSK, they probably didn't use it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so persistent in chasing the Yu clan. Nodding slightly, Lin Yi finally understood everything. However, this was useless to the Yu clan. The Yu clan didn't even have an invincible saint, let alone a great sage. The other contents of the letter were various guesses about the treasure, the strength of the Yu clan, and the Yu clan's patriarch. Apart from that, there was nothing else. Putting down the letter, Lin Yi looked at the technique again. Sure enough, that cultivation technique was the main volume of the Blood Soul Heaven Fuse art, and it recorded the methods to control others or suck their blood, causing it to be rather strange and bizarre. At the same time, a faint voice sounded in Lin Ye's ears, as if trying to tempt him to cultivate the Blood Soul Heaven Fusion technique. Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. Human Mobile Version Reading Website, M. Chapter 599. Those voices were extremely tempting, but unfortunately, Lin Yi mainly cultivated the power of divine sense, so he was completely unmoved. Lin Yi indifferently put down the Blood Soul Heaven Fusion technique. After he finished recording the method to break the technique, he summoned a flame and burned it to ashes. Beep 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 beep. In less than 10 breaths of time, the sheepskin scroll that recorded the Blood Soul Heaven Fusion technique's cultivation method also turned into ashes. Phew, the Blood Soul Heaven Fusion technique. This kind of harmful cultivation method should disappear as soon as possible. Sighing softly, Lin Yi picked up the sculpture again. The texture of the sculpture was quite strange. It was neither gold nor jade, neither stone nor wood, but when touched it gave off a warm feeling. Although the texture was comfortable, the sculpture's image was that of an evil god, and it looked especially ferocious. This sculpture is definitely not ordinary. His eyes turned cold. Just as Lin Yi was about to destroy the sculpture, a thought appeared in his mind. Perhaps this sculpture would be of great use in the future. Putting away the sculpture, Lin Yi burned down the secret room and leaped out. Big brother Lin, what's the situation inside? Yu Menglin and the others hurried over. After pondering for a moment, Lin Yi took out the letter and handed it to Yu Menglin and the others, allowing them to read it. Fu Xian, Yu Menglin, and the others couldn't help but be surprised. However, after reading a few lines, Yu Menglin and the others' expressions changed slightly, and they began to read it seriously. Lin Yi pulled Shen Qingyun to the side and took out the sculpture. Senior Sister Shen, what do you think this is? Lin Yi asked curiously, but he saw Shen Qingyun sizing up the sculpture, her eyes filled with disdain. This sculpture is so ugly. Shen Qingyun frowned slightly and said with disgust, moreover, there seems to be an evil force hidden in the sculpture. Try to feel it. Lin Yi handed the sculpture to Shen Qingyun. In the beginning, Shen Qingyun was a little disgusted. However, when she touched the sculpture, she raised her eyebrows and revealed a look of surprise. This sculpture is so strange. The texture is so special that it gives people a warm feeling. Moreover, I don't hate it as much as before. At this point, Shen Qingyun hurriedly threw the sculpture to Lin Yi and said seriously, Junior brother Lin, there is definitely something wrong with this sculpture. It's best if you don't keep it with you. It seems to be able to control other people's minds. Not bad. Lin Yi said in a deep voice. Since you don't know what it is, you can only wait a few days and ask the elders. Will there be any danger in 2 days? Shen Qingyun frowned and bit her lips. She looked at Lin Yi with worry in her eyes. The sculpture was so strange that even Shen Qingyun was not sure. No problem. Lin Yi said in a deep voice, I have the origin source heavenly water. It can protect me from all evils. Origin source heavenly water? Hearing this term, Shen Qingyun could not help but frown and look at Lin Yi in confusion. It's the water that I dripped on you just now. Lin Yi smiled and said, I will give you more in the future. So that's the origin source heavenly water. Shen Qingyun said in a low voice, keep that thing well. Don't let too many people know about it. It's just a drop, but it can make me change so much. It's definitely a divine item. I feel that my aptitude might have improved a little. At this point, Shen Qingyun's face was full of shock. It was the first time she had seen a treasure that could improve one's aptitude. Don't worry, I will keep it well. Nodding slightly, Lin Yi rubbed the sculpture with one hand while discussing with Shen Qingyun. Not long after, Yu Menglin and the others finished reading the letter. Their expressions were complicated. There was surprise, helplessness, ecstasy, and a sense of helplessness. They originally thought that they had a feud with the blood refining sect. They did not expect that it was just a case of possessing a treasure. The Yu family had declined, but they still had a treasure that could directly increase the cultivation level of the great sage. Therefore, the blood refining sect had always been targeting them. It was also because of this that the other forces wanted to make a move on them. They were treated as a piece of fresh meat and everyone was fighting for it. It was a feeling of powerlessness that made them despair. What made them even more depressed was that for hundreds of years, the Yu family did not know that the treasure was hidden in the family. What was this? An undeserved disaster? Third uncle, when we go back, you must look for it carefully. Let's find that treasure. Yu Menglin wiped away her tears and said in a deep voice, now that we have a lot of resources, as long as someone can break through to the great sage realm, the treasure can be used by them. This way, our Yu family will have a great sage intermediate stage powerhouse, and we will no longer have to fear the other forces. Okay. Yu Hongrui and Yu Hongguang felt a little pain in their hearts at first. They were worried that the outer sect disciple would break through to the great sage realm first. However, when they thought about how the Yu family did not even have a person to carry the cauldron and only relied on Lin Yi, they agreed. After making the decision, Yu Menglin, Yu Hongrui, and the others walked to Lin Ye's side and respectfully bowed to Lin Yi. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and quickly helped Yu Menglin and the others up. Thank you, young Master Lin, Yu Menglin said gratefully. If it were not for young Master Lin, our Yu family would not have been able to get out of trouble and we would not have known about the existence of such a treasure. No need to thank me, it was just a coincidence. Lin Yi smiled faintly as his gaze softened. Suddenly, Yu Hongrui and the others were puzzled. They were very curious as to why Lin Yi would do such a thing. Just a few spiritual sense cultivation techniques were not that attractive. They also thought that Lin Yi liked Yu Menglin, but the facts proved that Lin Yi did not like her. Even Shen Qingyun, who Lin Yi brought today, had a better temperament than Yu Menglin. Young Master Lin, what should we do next? Yu Menglin suddenly said, our Yu family does not have many people. If we also have to take care of the blood refining sect, we may not be able to guarantee our strength. Or should we go and buy some slaves? We are not in a hurry to buy slaves. Lin Yi shook his head and said, quality is more important than quantity. The most important thing now is to increase the strength of the Yu family and then buy slaves. Otherwise, if you are not strong enough, the slaves may run away. Give up all the forces of the blood refining sect except for the market. Focus on developing the main Yu family and the market of the blood refining sect. There must be a special place in the market. Dig it out carefully. Okay. Yu Menglin nodded slightly and confirmed everything. It had to be said that Yu Menglin was indeed capable. Her previous thoughts were similar to Lin Ye's. Big brother Lin, I will go and give the order immediately. Oh right, are we going back to the Yu family today? At this point, Yu Menglin pursed her lips. There was a glimmer of hope in the depths of Lin Ye's eyes. Although Lin Yi had clearly rejected Yu Menglin, she still had the desire in her heart. Genius memorized this site's address in a second. Human mobile reading website, M. Chapter 600. Of course. Lin Yi smiled. Now that the Yu clan had taken all the resources of the blood refining sect, there would definitely be forces that would attack them. If he wasn't there, the Yu clan would be finished. Although Lin Yi wanted to cause chaos in Luori City, he didn't want anything to happen to the Yu clan. Moreover, there were secrets in the Yu clan's ancestral hall that he hadn't figured out yet. Great! Yu Menglin was overjoyed. She quickly ordered Yu Hongguang and the others to strengthen the market according to Lin Ye's previous instructions. The rest returned to the Yu clan together. Back at the Yu clan, Yu Menglin was about to arrange a room for Shin Qinyun, but she was interrupted by Shin Qinyun. You don't have to arrange a room for me. I'll stay with junior brother. Glancing at Yu Menglin, Shin Qinyun pulled Lin Yi, whose mouth was twitching in surprise, into the inner courtyard. Yu Menglin stood rooted to the ground, as if she had been struck by lightning. The news of the blood refining sect's destruction and the rise of the Yu clan quickly spread to the ears of the leaders of the major forces. Even the Heavenly Treasure Pavilion and the other forces in the city were afraid of the Yu clan when they heard the news. The blood refining sect wasn't weak. They had thousands of disciples, and Xue Tianying was an early-stage great sage expert. Even a mid-stage great sage expert wouldn't dare to say that he could suppress him. How could they not be shocked when the Yu clan destroyed the blood refining sect? Therefore, the major forces began to investigate the Yu clan's strength. Some of the forces had even secretly joined forces. Of course, the Yu clan was unaware of all this. They were still immersed in the joy of defeating the blood refining sect. Late at night, in the Yu clan's ancestral hall, a figure quietly came to the ancestral hall. The surroundings were extremely quiet. There was nothing around the ancestral hall except for a small courtyard. Not even a shadow could be seen. He looked around and saw that the figure was none other than Lin Yi, who was slowly walking towards the small courtyard. The small courtyard was desolate. Before he even entered, he could see that the ground was yellow. Under the yellow, there was a tender green that contained some vitality. Lin Ye's heart couldn't help but tremble when he saw this. Frowning, Lin Yi stepped forward. Suddenly, a light screen appeared in front of him, blocking Lin Ye's right foot. Sure enough, there's a problem. His heart tightening, Lin Yi stretched out his hand to touch the light curtain. Immediately, he felt incomparably comfortable. Strange, why aren't they attacking? Although he didn't feel the attack, Lin Yi frowned. He was extremely surprised. Lin Yi pressed down forcefully. He wanted to step into the courtyard, but he was unable to do so. He could only touch the formation, but he was unable to enter. This caused Lin Yi to be incomparably astonished. He rubbed his nose and began to guess the use of the array. After struggling for a while, Lin Yi used the power of his divine sense to try and break the array. Boom! However, just as the power of his divine sense crashed into it, a surge of power suddenly gushed out from the array and directly hit Lin Ye's chest, sending him flying. Hiss! His body suddenly landed on the ground. Lin Yi couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He only felt that his bones were about to fall apart and his organs were in incomparable pain. It seems that this array was left behind by the elders of the Yu family. It's not dangerous to my family, but if I try to forcefully break the array, it will trigger a counterattack. Rubbing his nose, Lin Yi thought for a moment and confirmed that the attack was even stronger than that of a great sage. He couldn't shake it. Thus, He no longer thought of entering the small courtyard and turned to walk towards the ancestral hall. Yu Menglin once said that the ancestral hall could be entered and exited. Although it was old and shabby, Lin Yi believed that he would be able to find some clues in the ancestral hall. As expected, the ancestral hall was not obstructed in the slightest, and he easily entered. Looking around, he saw that it was full of dust. On the table, where the memorial tablet was originally placed, there was not a speck of dust. However, it was empty, and there was not a single memorial tablet. There was only a nameless memorial tablet placed at the very top. There were faint ripples of spiritual energy around it, protecting the memorial tablet very well. Hiss! Someone must have been here before. Frowning slightly, Lin Yi looked around and carefully examined the dust. However, his expression became serious. Even with his strength, there were clear footprints on the ground after entering. However, the place where the memorial tablet was placed was extremely clean. Obviously, someone had cleaned it not long ago. It was obvious that the person hiding in the dark was far more powerful than Lin Yi. The Yu family really has a big secret. His heart trembling, Lin Ye's footsteps became lighter and lighter as he carefully examined the ancestral hall. After he finished examining everything, except for the memorial tablet, there was nothing unusual in the ancestral hall. The rest of the place was covered in dust and looked very old. Therefore, Lin Yi could only focus on the memorial tablet. With a leap, Lin Yi reached out to grab the memorial tablet. Buzz! However, before Lin Ye's fingers could touch the memorial tablet, a weak spiritual energy suddenly surged and turned into a sharp metal. It suddenly pierced Lin Ye's palm. Hiss! In an instant, an intense pain attacked Lin Yi. He quickly withdrew his right hand and sucked in a breath of cold air. Looking up, Lin Yi focused on the memorial tablet. He saw the light around the memorial tablet surging. The saint energy turned into metal and protected the memorial tablet. May I ask which senior of the Yu family is here? Rolling his eyes, Lin Yi suddenly raised his voice and said, I am a guest of the Yu family. Now that the Yu family is in a precarious situation, since senior has appeared, why don't you show yourself? If I may be so bold, I would like to invite senior to come out. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Ye's voice suddenly echoed in the ancestral hall. After a while, it gradually dissipated. Other than that, there was no other sound. Frowning slightly, Lin Ye's heart was filled with uncertainty as he constantly looked around. According to his guess, the person in the dark who painstakingly protected the ancestral hall and small courtyard must be a member of the Yu family. However, why was he unwilling to come out? Now the Yu family was in danger. If it were not for Lin Yi, the Yu family would have been destroyed by the blood-refining sect. However, the person in the dark was still at ease. Even Yu Menglin and the others did not know of the person's existence. This made Lin Yi uncertain. That person was so indifferent to the Yu family. Could it be that he was not a member of the Yu family? Hiss! A blank memorial tablet. It seems that the person may not be a member of the Yu family. With a sigh, Lin Yi confirmed that there were no other clues in the ancestral hall and could only leave in disappointment. He was sure that the person in the dark was powerful and was not someone he could come into contact with at the moment. However, the moment Lin Ye's right foot stepped into the ancestral hall, a faint sigh sounded in the entire Yu family. The voice was so weak that even Lin Yi did not hear it. Wait! In Lin Ye's sea of consciousness, Biluo suddenly called out to Lin Yi. Her breathing became heavier and her tone suddenly became solemn. Someone is sighing. Genius memorized the address of this site in a second. Human Mobile Version Reading Website. M. Chapter 601. Someone is sighing. What? Lin Yi stopped in his tracks when he heard Biluo's voice. He turned around abruptly, his eyes shining brightly. Lin Yi looked carefully for a moment, but there was nothing in the ancestral hall. He could not help but frown. It's not in the ancestral hall. Biluo's voice sounded again. Someone sighed just now. There were two people's auras in that small courtyard. However, they were very powerful and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Now they're gone again. Hiss. Even you can't sense them? Lin Yi was terrified. Biluo could sense the existence of the great sage realm. Right now, Biluo had no clue at all. Didn't this mean that the strength of the person in the dark had already reached the heavenly saint realm, and had reached the realm of an elder of the sacred martial academy? That's right, Biluo said in a low voice. Moreover, they have no ill intentions toward you or the family. According to my speculation, they are most likely an elder of the Yu family. Phew, if that's the case, then I won't bother. Lin Yi sighed. Since the two people were related to the Yu family and did not want to come out, Lin Yi did not want to disturb them. He could only leave. When he left, Lin Yi did not notice that there was a gentle breeze in the ancestral hall. It blew up the dust and buried the footprints that Lin Yi had left behind. When Lin Yi returned to the room, Shen Qingyun was still awake. Why didn't you call me when you went out? Shen Qingyun held her chin and stared at Lin Yi. There was an extremely powerful force that swept through the Yu family. Did you do that? You sensed it? Lin Yi was slightly surprised, and his heart was filled with shock. He did not sense the aura just now. He had to rely on Biluo to discover the existence of the person hiding in the dark. From the looks of it, you didn't do it. Shen Qingyun glanced at Lin Yi and asked, "What's the situation?" The seniors of the Yu clan might still be from the Yu clan. Lin Yi said in a deep voice, "Moreover, they are very strong." Then why aren't they coming out? Hearing this, Shen Qingyun was also surprised. The Yu family is already in such a state, why aren't they coming out to help? Who knows? Lin Yi shook his head and said, "Those two people care a lot about the ancestral hall. There's a nameless memorial tablet inside that's well protected. I'll go ask tomorrow. Perhaps I can find out their identities through the memorial tablet." Phew, I was really worried that after I left, the Yu clan would be attacked by other forces. It would be much better if they could find a new source of protection. Lin Yi sighed softly. Shen Qingyun glanced at Lin Yi with a strange look in her eyes. "Why are you helping the Yu clan?" They didn't need to get involved. Even if they were defeated by the blood-refining sect, they could still escape. Lin Yi said seriously, "But now they've been pulled into such a big whirlpool by me. They're in danger of losing their lives at any time. Naturally, I have to protect them." Childish. Shen Qingyun pursed her lips and suddenly shook her head with a smile. "Sometimes you're so cold that you don't even care about life. But sometimes you're so kind that you're stupid. You're the one who pulled them into the whirlpool. But if it weren't for you, their families would have been destroyed. In other words, they chose this path by themselves. Moreover, they also gained a lot of benefits from you, so you don't owe them anything. You owe someone else." Huh. Hearing this, Lin Yi was stunned. He frowned slightly and asked in confusion, "Who do I owe? Yu Menglin?" Speaking of this, Lin Yi smiled bitterly. "I didn't expect that she would misunderstand that I like her. Even more so, I didn't expect that she would like me. Tisk, who's willing to listen to your nonsense?" Shen Qingyun rolled her eyes and said disdainfully, "The person you owe is me." How do I owe you?" Lin Yi was dumbfounded and looked at Shen Qingyun in puzzlement. "I helped you hide it from the elders and escaped, didn't I?" Shen Qingyun's lips curled up slightly. "I didn't need to come out, but for you, I escaped. Tell me, don't you owe me?" The corner of Lin Ye's mouth twitched. He said helplessly, Yes, I owe you. I'll give you more points later." "I don't want it." Shen Qingyun said snappily, "What's so fun about points? I only have one request." "Well, if there's anything fun, bring me along. It's the same for the Yu family. Don't leave me alone if there's anything." "Okay." A thought suddenly flashed through Lin Ye's mind. He said immediately, "Senior Shen, I wonder if you're interested in exploring relics. What relics? Shin Qingyun blinked and asked casually. A relic of a divine will ascended saint. A divine will. Hearing this, Shin Qingyun raised her eyebrows and looked up at Lin Yi. Obviously, she was moved by the relics. Since it's a relic of a divine will, it must be interesting. Do you know where it is? A friend of mine invited me. Lin Yi smiled. If you're interested, we can go together. Someone invited you. Isn't it against the rules to drag me along? Shin Qingyun tilted her head slightly. Generally speaking, for something like exploring a forbidden area, it was best to invite someone trustworthy. If he dragged Shin Qingyun along, it might make others unhappy. It's okay. Lin Yi touched his nose and waved his hand. You're so strong. They'll be happy to have you join. Your friend should be a freshman, right? After murmuring, Shin Qingyun suddenly grinned. Okay, deal. After the mission is over, we'll explore the relics together. Okay, don't worry and cultivate. Seeing that he had coaxed Shin Qingyun, Lin Yi sat cross-legged and began to cultivate. You, lying on the bed, Shin Qingyun rolled her eyes at Lin Yi. She shook her white legs, and the look in her eyes gradually became illusory. The next day, when Lin Yi finished cultivating, Shin Qingyun was already practicing in the courtyard. The sound of the blade sweeping through the air was constantly heard. Lin Yi got up and pushed open the door to take a look. He was stunned. Shin Qingyun, who was practicing with the blade, looked focused. Her posture was amazing. Her movements were gentle and strong. She looked quite powerful. Sucking in a breath of cold air, Lin Yi looked at Shin Qingyun with a special feeling in his eyes. After a while, the blade dance ended. Shin Qingyun put away her long blade and jumped directly onto a tree. She plucked a fruit and ate it directly. Her white legs swayed and Lin Ye's sight flickered. So self-conscious? The corner of his mouth twitched. Lin Yi sighed in his heart. After the blade dance, Shin Qingyun's temperament changed. She was not like a person at all. Want one? Shin Qingyun did not care about Lin Ye's gaze. She waved her right hand and a few fruits quickly flew to Lin Yi. After receiving the fruit, Lin Yi took a bite. Just as he was about to open his mouth, a thunderous roar suddenly exploded outside the Yu family's house. Genius memorized this site's address in a second. Chinese mobile version reading website. M. Chapter 602. Rumble. A thunderous roar suddenly exploded inside and outside the Yu residence. In an instant, the powerful sound waves spread out, causing the entire Yu residence to shake violently. Even Lin Yi almost lost his balance. The fruit tree shook, and the branches suddenly broke. Shin Qingyun quickly flew up and floated in the air, her expression extremely solemn. People of the Yu family, come out! The sound waves rolled out like thunder. For a moment, everyone in the Yu family panicked and looked at the sky in despair. Over a dozen figures rushed over from the distance like lightning. Every one of them had a powerful saint aura surging around them, giving off an oppressive feeling like a mountain. The saint power around the leader was so dense that it formed a white mist, shocking everyone who saw it. The weakest in this group of people was an invincible saint, and the leader was even more powerful. His aura was even more powerful than Xue Tianying's. Heavens, a dozen invincible saints. There's also a great sage powerhouse. When did our Yu family provoke such a powerful enemy? After sensing the strength of the newcomers, everyone in the Yu family was stunned and extremely surprised. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yu Menglin, Yu Hongguang, and the others quickly rushed to Lin Ye's residence after sensing that something was wrong. Brother Lin, what's going on? As soon as they saw Lin Yi, Yu Menglin and the others hurried over. Only Lin Yi could give them some peace of mind. It's okay, let me go up and ask first. Lin Yi nodded slightly and quickly comforted Yu Menglin. At this moment, the dozen figures in the air had already arrived above the Yu residence and coldly scanned the Yu residence. Steward of the Yu family, come out! The great sage powerhouse took a step forward and shouted in a deep voice, "I have something to ask you." As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Ye's shoulders shook, and he rose into the air and landed not far away from the great sage powerhouse. "I wonder what business do you have with my Yu clan?" Lin Yi cupped his fist with a calm expression. The newcomer was not weak. He was at the peak of the early great sage powerhouse, and was even more terrifying than Xue Tianying. Therefore, Lin Yi did not want to offend him for no reason. You're just an outsider. How can you represent the Yu family?" Seeing that it was Lin Yi, the figure laughed coldly. "That's right, the Yu clan has long since declined. With your strength, it is indeed normal for you to be able to dominate the Yu clan." Ha! Hearing this, Lin Ye's expression instantly became grave and stern. It was very obvious that this group of people had absolutely come to the Yu family to cause trouble. "Xue Tianying, let me ask you, how many of them are you?" That figure suddenly stared at Lin Yi with a piercingly cold look in his eyes. "They're already dead." Lin Yi suddenly laughed. "Why? Are you going to collect their corpses?" "Bastard!" Hearing that, the person's face darkened, and his heart was filled with rage. He wasn't the only one. The dozen people behind him were also enraged. They looked at Lin Yi with eyes full of anger. Nonsense. Suddenly, several invincible saint experts stared coldly at Lin Yi and barked, "Lord, they're all in the great sage realm. How can they be dead? You're just an ant in the early saint realm? Or is it with your weak divine sense?" As soon as he finished speaking, the dozen or so invincible saints all sneered. They had never seen Lin Yi fight with their own eyes. Therefore, they did not believe the rumors and thought that Lin Ye's strength was exaggerated. After all, under normal circumstances, how could a ninth tribulation half-true saint fight with an expert in the great sage realm? Even if he was a divine sense saint expert, it was impossible. Those who could fight across a realm were already geniuses among geniuses. Lin Ye's brilliant battle record was too shocking and not easy to convince. "Haha, congratulations on guessing right." Lin Yi smiled slightly. "Unfortunately, there's no award." As he spoke, Lin Yi put his hands behind his back. His face gradually turned cold, but his hands behind his back secretly made a gesture to Shen Qingyun, Yu Menglin, and the others. Ha ha ha! Hearing Lin Ye's words, the dozen invincible saint experts were stunned at first, but then they all laughed wildly. Even the great sage's mouth curled up. Looking at Lin Yi, his eyes were full of disdain. "Kid, Xue Tianying and the others should have been injured by the lightning tribulation. Although I don't know how you survived and why they suddenly triggered the lightning tribulation, it's not important." All of a sudden, the great sage glared at Lin Yi. "We only found 3 corpses in that area," he said coldly. "Their rings of holding were all gone. I'm guessing you have them, don't you?" Lin Yi nodded. "If you hand over the storage ring and tell me the whereabouts of the other person, I can spare your life." Raising his eyebrows slightly, Lin Yi was quite surprised. He did not expect this group of people to really find clues. "Haha, what storage ring? I don't know." Sneering, Lin Yi looked indifferent and said in a low voice, "This is the Yu family's territory. Get out of here. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." As soon as Ling Shouting's words fell, the entire space fell silent. The many guards of the Yu family, including Yu Menglin and the others, all turned pale and broke out in cold sweat. They were afraid that Lin Ye's words would anger those experts. The invincible saints and supreme saints burst into laughter, their eyes full of disdain as they looked at Lin Yi. "Kid, I really don't know who gave you the courage to speak like this. This is the first time I, Guan Tianlong, have met someone as bold as you." Guan Tianlong curled his lips and said disdainfully, "I'll give you one last chance. If you don't hand over the storage ring, let alone you, I'll bury the entire Yu family with you." "Kid, Don't think that you can fight against the invincible saints just because you were lucky enough to kill Mo Pining. If it wasn't for the sneak attack that day, how could you have succeeded? If we really fought, killing you would be as easy as killing a mosquito. In an instant, all the invincible saints laughed. Sigh, why is it that no one believes me when I speak the truth these days? Lin Yi sighed and shook his head helplessly. Interesting. Guan Tianlong curled his lips and suddenly said, Kid, since you're so eager to die, I'll let you understand the difference between us. If I want to kill you, it'll be as easy as killing an ant. As soon as he said that, Guan Tianlong's heart moved, and the shadow of a giant dragon suddenly rushed out from his body. Roar. The dragon's roar suddenly sounded, and in the next moment, a violent saint's aura pressed down on Lin Yi like a storm. The saint's aura was biting cold, and the Yu family members only felt a little of it. They all groaned and their legs turned to jelly, almost kneeling on the ground. In an instant, the Yu family members looked up at Lin Yi, their eyes full of hope. Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. Human Mobile Version Reading Website. Chapter 603. Roar. The dragon's roar rang out, and the giant dragon's shadow spiraled up, opening its huge mouth and biting down on Lin Yi. However, Lin Yi's expression did not change in the face of the ferocious dragon. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The wind howled, sweeping up Lin Yi's hair, and the surging saint aura descended. Seeing this, the Yu clan, including Yu Menglin and the others, could not help but close their eyes. In their hearts, Lin Yi was a saint, and no matter how strong he was, he could not fight the great sage head-on. The difference of a large level was like a natural chasm, and at least to the people of Sunset City, it was impossible to surpass. The invincible saints laughed out loud. Ha ha ha, this is too funny, this guy dares to challenge the great sage? Tisk tsk, look at him, isn't he scared out of his wits? He's not even moving. Ah, I'm sure he's scared out of his wits. Indeed, in front of the great sage, it's a miracle that he's still alive. Amidst the laughter, the biting cold dragon aura, mixed with saint aura, fell on Lin Yi's body. Suddenly, 5 different types of power exploded behind Lin Yi. The 5 elemental realms merged, and 7 colored lightning bloomed, enveloping Lin Yi entirely. Kaboom! The lightning bloomed and a special power rippled. In just an instant, the suffocating saint aura was dispelled. What? Sensing this scene, Guan Tianlong's pupils abruptly shrank as he stared intently at Lin Yi, his eyes filled with shock. The holy aura of an early great saint did not have the slightest deterrence to Lin Yi? No, this is impossible. Oh my God, how can this be? He's just a saint. How can he resist the saint aura of the great sage? Behind Guan Tianlong, the invincible saints were all shocked. Their mouths were wide open, and one could stuff an egg into them. They couldn't believe it. The corners of their mouths kept twitching. They felt like they were dreaming. Hearing their exclamations, the members of the Yu clan below opened their eyes one after another. When they discovered that Lin Yi was safe and sound, they were immediately overjoyed. His tense heart was completely at ease, and he was filled with hope for Lin Yi. Hiss! Lord Lin is really too powerful. That's right, he's so powerful. He's only a saint, but he can withstand the saint aura of the great sage. Maybe he can even resist the great sage. If that's the case, doesn't that mean our Yu clan also has a great sage expert? For a time, everyone in the Yu clan was incomparably excited. The shock and panic in their hearts were all thrown away. Lin Yi was bathed in the 7-colored lightning. Coupled with the reflection of the 5 elements territory, he was like the god of thunder descending to the world, shocking everyone. With a cold laugh, Lin Yi waved his right hand lightly. Several bolts of lightning bloomed and suddenly dispersed the remaining saint aura in the air. He said indifferently, This is the Saint Aura of the Great Sage Realm? Guan Tianlong, is it? You're so impressive. This is the Yu clan's territory. If you cause trouble, don't blame me for not showing mercy. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone in the Yu clan felt their blood boil. It was as if a ball of fire was burning in their hearts. For so many years, the Yu clan had been bullied and oppressed. When they went out and met people from other forces, they didn't even dare to speak up. This time, in the face of the Great Sage Realm, the Yu clan could stand up. This made them extremely excited. In a moment, Lin Ye's prestige in their hearts had silently surpassed Yu Menglin and the rest. Most of them didn't know Lin Ye's identity. They still thought that Lin Yi was really the son-in-law of the Yu clan. Kaka. Kaka. Everyone in the Yu clan was excited, but Guan Tianlong was furious. His face was as cold as ice. He clenched his fists, and the crisp sound of his bones could be heard. Violent Saint Aura constantly rippled out from his body, like a volcano that was about to erupt. Very good, very good. Guan Tianlong was so angry that he laughed. I've been in Sunset City for 50 years. Even the people from the Sky Treasure Pavilion welcome me with a smile. Kid, you're the first person who dares to mock me like this. Oh, don't worry, you're definitely not the last. Lin Yi curled his lips and said disdainfully, with your strength, there will be more and more people who will surpass you in the future. They will all mock you. You're courting death. Guan Tianlong's face was ashen. He raised his right hand, and in the next moment, an icy blue longsword appeared in his hand. The longsword was sharp, and there was a huge dragon coiled around the blade. Its eyes were wide open, as if it had a spirit of its own. Kid, after I cripple you, I'll kill everyone in the Yu clan in front of you. At that time, I'd like to see if you're still as sharp-tongued as before. With a roar, Guan Tianlong twisted his right wrist, and the long sword in his hand trembled. The sharp blade released a sharp aura that pierced through the air towards Lin Yi. Supreme Black Light Shield. Heavenly Emperor Fist. Finger of Annihilation. Feeling the sharp attack, Lin Yi didn't dare to be careless. He released his divine telekinesis to support the three powers. In an instant, regardless of whether it was the Supreme Black Light Shield, Heavenly Emperor Fist, or Finger of Annihilation, they all exploded with a powerful force under the support of the divine attraction. Kaboom! The shadow of the golden index finger fell, but it was instantly destroyed by the sharp aura. In the next moment, the Heavenly Emperor Fist shattered. The sharp aura smashed into the Supreme Black Light Shield like it was nothing. Eightfold Defense. Suddenly feeling the surging power, Lin Ye's face changed slightly, and he quickly activated his eightfold defense. Clang! The Supreme Profound Light Shield cracked, and the shock wave that rippled out was mixed with a powerful force, and suddenly sent Lin Yi flying. Fortunately, when the force hit Lin Yi, it was already weakened to the extreme, and didn't cause any harm to Lin Yi. With a flip of his body, Lin Yi floated in the air, safe and sound. Hiss! How is that possible? Gosh, this kid can really block the attack of a great sage expert? Seeing this, many invincible saints were stunned, and their faces were filled with confusion. Previously, when Lin Yi was able to ignore Guan Tianlong's aura, they could say that it was luck. But this time? Even they didn't dare to say that they could withstand Guan Tianlong's attack unscathed. Didn't this mean that Lin Ye's strength was far stronger than theirs? Hiss! That's impossible, right? This kid's cultivation level is lower than ours. How could he withstand the attack of the great sage? Where did this guy come from? Why is he so fierce? Frowning slightly, the dozens of invincible saints couldn't help but take a few steps back, and their hearts were filled with fear of Lin Yi. Despicable kid! Guan Tianlong flew into a rage. He was so angry that he wanted to eat Lin Ye's flesh and bite him to death. Today, I, Guan Tianlong, swear that if I don't kill you, I'm not human. Amidst his angry roar, Guan Tianlong's body suddenly expanded like a giant, and his entire body grew several feet taller. Baidu search 81 Chinese websitio. No advertising message. Chapter 604. Kacha. Kacha. With a crisp sound, Guan Tianlong's clothes were torn apart. He was like a giant that was dozens of feet tall. That long blade also grew in size as his body grew. The huge ice-blue dragon on the blade also became more lively. Its eyes flickered with light, and the aura contained within it was also much stronger than before. Rumble! Strong saint aura fell like angry thunder, echoing in everyone's ears. At this moment, even the invincible saints behind Guan Tianlong turned pale and took a few steps back. Guan Tianlong, who was in a state of rage, did not recognize anyone. His saint aura targeted even them. Feeling the violent power in the air, Lin Yi could not help but squint his eyes. He stared at Guan Tianlong and clenched his fists, ready to attack at any time. Although Guan Tianlong's cultivation level was higher than Lin Yi's, his cultivation techniques and martial techniques were not as good as Xue Tianying's. Therefore, Lin Yi was not afraid of him. With Jadefall's help, as well as a host of Paragon Sage artifacts, it would be a complete waste if he couldn't even take care of an early Great Sage. Buzz! Suddenly, a sharp saber chi tore through the air and cut through the sky. It even cut through the violent saint aura. A figure quietly appeared in front of Lin Yi. Who is it? Guan Tianlong's expression changed slightly. Looking at the figure, he frowned and was surprised. At this moment, the saint aura was so strong that even an invincible saint would not dare to enter. The person who suddenly appeared made him panic. Raising his eyebrows, Lin Yi looked at the beautiful figure in front of him. He could not help but say, "Senior sister, what are you doing here? It's dangerous up there." The person who suddenly attacked was Shen Qingyun. Hearing this, Guan Tianlong was shocked. He frowned and looked at Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun. The more Guan Tianlong looked, the more panicked he felt. Even after changing their appearances, Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun still couldn't hide their youthful aura. Guan Tianlong's heart was filled with fear. What kind of power could nurture such a young monster? It seemed that Shen Qingyun's aura was much stronger than Lin Yi's. If Lin Yi could block one of his attacks, then wouldn't the young girl in front of him be able to contend with him? Just as Guan Tianlong was feeling fearful, Shen Qingyun glanced at Lin Yi in annoyance. "Junior brother Lin, are you doubting my strength and looking down on me?" Cough, cough, no. The corners of Lin Yi's mouth twitched. He was extremely puzzled. Shen Qingyun could have caused trouble at any other time. Why did she have to cause trouble when she encountered a strong enemy? After all, Guan Tianlong was an expert of the Great Sage realm. Shen Qingyun was only an invincible sage. How could she compete with him? However, Lin Yi forgot that Shen Qingyun was an inner yard disciple of Sibu Gakuan. She had extraordinary talent. Last time, when she encountered the top expert of the Corpse Demon School, she wasn't afraid. She even made the expert feel threatened. From this, it could be seen that Shen Qingyun's strength was definitely not weaker than Lin Yi's. In fact, she was even more powerful. After all, Shen Qingyun had come into contact with many good teachers in the inner yard. Those powerful elders would definitely help Shen Qingyun improve. "Junior brother, you have to remember." Shen Qingyun held her long saber in one hand and her chin in the other. She said very seriously, "I'm your senior sister. You can't doubt me. Also, since you called me senior sister, it means that I'm stronger than you." Shen Qingyun stared at Lin Yi seriously and asked, "Do you remember?" Hearing this, Lin Yi couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. "What the hell? You're still talking about this at such a critical moment?" Lin Yi wasn't the only one who was shocked. Whether it was the Yu family, the invincible sages, or even Guan Tianlong, they were all stunned. The battle was about to start. Where did this young girl come from? She played it down so casually, as if she didn't take Guan Tianlong seriously at all. Why, junior brother, you're not convinced? Seeing that Lin Yi didn't answer, Shen Qingyun pouted. She raised her long saber and stared at Lin Yi. Ahem, I'm convinced. I'm convinced. Lin Yi hurriedly admitted his mistake. In an instant, Shen Qingyun smiled happily, incomparably radiantly. Bastard! At this moment Guan Tianlong finally reacted and roared, You two bastards, you don't take me seriously at all. If I don't skin the two of you alive, I'm not Guan Tianlong. Guan Tianlong, who was ignored by the two, was furious. He even forgot about Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun's identities. He immediately waved his long saber and slashed horizontally. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Roar! A dragon's roar suddenly sounded, and a strong saint aura surged. An enormous ice-blue dragon seemed to come alive as it flew out from the blade. It roared furiously as it charged towards Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun to kill them. The strong saint aura was like a huge mountain. It suddenly pressed down on Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun. Noticing this, Lin Yi's expression changed slightly. He was about to push Shen Qingyun away and face it alone when Shen Qingyun glanced at him. Junior brother Lin, let me deal with this guy. If you attack, those invincible saints may attack. Shen Qingyun said indifferently, I'm not interested in protecting those people. Relatively speaking, I prefer to fight with the strong. As soon as she finished speaking, Shen Qingyun's body immediately spun, and the long saber in her hand was swung out in an extremely strange posture. It was like an antelope hanging its horn, and it was untraceable. Buzz! The sharp saber cut through the sky, bringing with it a shocking saber chi, and collided with the huge ice-blue dragon with a loud bang. In the next moment, a surging and violent power burst out from Shen Qingyun's seemingly weak body. Innocuous saber, the saber strikes innocuously. Shen Qingyun shouted. Her body danced wildly, and the long saber in her hand kept bursting with sharp saber chi. In just a dozen breaths, she and Guan Tianlong were enveloped. All of a sudden, the saber aura rose. Shen Qingyun and Guan Tianlong's battle had shifted to the sky. Lin Yi was stunned on the spot. Looking up slightly, Lin Yi's heart was extremely complicated. It had to be said that Shen Qingyun had nothing to do with these matters, so she didn't have to do anything. However, Shen Qingyun knew that he wanted to protect the Yu family, so she took the initiative to take over Guan Tianlong so that Lin Yi could go all out to deal with those invincible saints and protect the Yu family. Understanding this, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel a warm current flowing through his heart. Sibu Gakuin was indeed the most powerful force. Although each disciple quarreled and bickered with each other, when it came to external forces, they were united against external forces. Phew, I can't let Sibu Gakuin lose face. Baidu search 81 Chinese Websidio. No advertising message. Chapter 605. Boom, boom, boom. A loud explosion rang out as the saber chi wreaked havoc and swept across the entire sky, shocking everyone. That girl is only an invincible saint, but she's as strong as a great sage. Who are they? That's terrifying. They're definitely not ordinary. We can't let our guard down. The dozen or so invincible saints looked at each other, and their eyes were filled with surprise. Their goal was to attack the Yu clan and find out the Yu clan's secret. But after seeing Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun, they hesitated and didn't dare to attack. But that didn't mean that Lin Yi wouldn't attack. Blazing flames appeared. Lin Yi held a giant sword and stepped into the void. He walked toward the dozen invincible saints with a cold look on his face. Everyone, it's time for us to talk. With a smile, Lin Yi raised blazing crimson, and the blazing flames surged. In an instant, the invincible saints couldn't help but take a few steps back. Gulp. Swallowing, one of the invincible saints said, Brothers, don't be afraid. He's only a beginner saint. We don't have to worry. Although they said those words, they all started to tremble at the same time, shivering with fear. Lin Ye's performance just now was too strong, and they lost the will to resist. Yue, there's nothing to talk about. Those invincible saints stammered, and they were ready to attack at any time. Of course, we're talking about why you came to the Yu family. Lin Yi said indifferently, you have no grudge with the Yu family. Why did you suddenly attack us? And from the looks of it, you don't seem to be from the same force. In Sunset City, most forces only had 1 or 2 invincible saints, and great sage were extremely rare. Only forces like the blood refining sect had them. So, with so many invincible saints and great sage suddenly appearing, Lin Yi was sure that they must be from different forces. Not bad. An invincible saint bellowed, your Yu clan broke the rules and acted rashly, destroying a force. This time, it is Lord Tianbao's order to bring the head of the Yu clan over. As his voice fell, the people of the Yu family below were endlessly panicking. Yu Menglin, Yu Hongguang, and the others looked at each other with a solemn expression. They hadn't thought of this before. They were just excited about the annihilation of the blood refining sect. But now they realized that although Lin Yi had eliminated the blood refining sect for them, he had also broken the rules. If that happened, the Yu clan would become the public enemy of the entire Sunset City. However, they did not know that even if Lin Yi did not take the initiative to make a move, the other forces would still not let the Yu clan off after they found out about the Yu clan's secret. An ordinary man is innocent, but treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. Bullshit. Lin Yi sneered, what rules? If you really value the rules, why didn't you do anything when the Yu clan was targeted by the blood refining sect for nearly 100 years? A bunch of hypocrites. Don't you just want the Yu clan's secret? Hearing this, the dozens of invincible saints shrank in pain and glared at Lin Yi. From what they knew, the Yu clan did not know about the Yu clan's secret. Otherwise, the Yu clan would have risen long ago. It was also because of this that they chose to slowly corrupt and invade the Yu clan. Now that Lin Yi had said it out loud, they were shocked and had an ominous feeling in their hearts. Could it be that their plan had been discovered by the Yu clan? Phew, it seems like all of you have designs on the Yu clan. His voice grew colder, and the killing intent in Lin Ye's body grew thicker. The dozens of invincible saints could not help but take a few steps back, and then shouted, what are you doing? This time, the Sky Treasure Pavilion asked us to come. That's right. If you dare to make a move, the Sky Treasure Pavilion will not let the Yu clan off. Ha ha ha, interesting. Lin Yi laughed out loud. If the Sky Treasure Pavilion wants to make a move, then come. Are you really going to break the rules of the Sunset City? Kid, if you insist on going down the wrong path, you will have to face the entire Sunset City. Yu clan, are you really going to let an outsider decide the fate of the Yu clan? Suddenly, an invincible saint shouted at the Yu clan members. They could already see that Lin Yi was not afraid of the Sunset City at all. In an instant, Yu Menglin, Yu Hongguang, and the others looked at each other, bewildered. After all, they had lived in the Sunset City for decades. In their hearts, they respected the rules and did not dare to offend the Sky Treasure Pavilion. Although the Sky Treasure Pavilion was not very powerful, they had a terrifying existence behind them. Otherwise, the Sunset City would not have been able to survive for nearly 1,000 years. What should we do? Menglin, why don't we ask Sir Lin to stop? Yeah, if we anger the Sky Treasure Pavilion, the entire Sunset City will ostracize us. We'll be done for. Yu Hongguang and Yu Hongyang whispered, looking at Yu Menglin with hope. Yu Menglin was suddenly filled with pressure. Deep in her heart, she trusted Lin Yi very much, but she was also worried that her decision would destroy the Yu clan. Shut up! Without waiting for Yu Menglin to reply, Yu Hongrui suddenly shouted, stop trying to incite people here. How much has Sir Lin sacrificed for the Yu clan? Furthermore, when have they ever obeyed the rules of the Sunset City? Otherwise, how could the Yu clan be in such a pitiful state today? I support Sir Lin. As long as Sir Lin is here, I will follow him. Yu Menglan's heart skipped a beat. In the next moment, all the guards in the Yu clan let out a deafening roar. The Yu clan is willing to follow Sir Lin. Sir Lin is mighty. His furious roar was like a giant dragon circling in the air, shaking the entire space. For a moment, the dozen invincible saints were stunned as they looked at the Yu clan below. They couldn't believe that the Yu clan was willing to go against the entire Sunset City and listen to Lin Yi. Yu Menglan and the others were even more shocked. They never thought that in just a few days, Lin Yi would have such a high position in the hearts of the guards. In addition to being surprised, Yu Menglan's cheeks were slightly red. She glanced at Lin Yi, her eyes filled with tenderness. Ah! Lin Yi laughed loudly. Now, what else do you have to say? Since you've already joined forces to attack the Yu clan, then I can't let you go today. Phew, if you want to fight, then let's fight. The Yu clan is not afraid of any power. Those who try to destroy the Yu clan will be killed without mercy. One sword light chills, 19 provinces. Sharp sword chi suddenly shot out from Lin Ye's body, piercing through space and whistling toward the dozen invincible saints. Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. Human mobile version reading website. M. Chapter 606. Swoosh. Swoosh. The sharp sword chi whistled and suddenly pierced toward the dozen invincible saints. Oh no! Feeling the whizzing sword chi, the invincible saints all retreated. As they raised their hands, their saint aura surged, and tens of thousands of domains rushed toward the sword chi. Whoosh! 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 The violent power collided with the sword chi. In the next moment there were continuous explosions, and the rippling shock waves swept out. The sword chi continued to spread. After a while, the violent power in the air dissipated, leaving only a wisp of smoke. The invincible saints looked at Lin Yi in shock. As soon as they exchanged blows, they realized that the sword chi was extremely sharp. If it weren't for the combined power of the invincible saints, they wouldn't have been able to resist it. To be able to block one of my attacks, you're quite capable. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows in surprise. Level 57 Divine Telekinesis, combined with the Saint's Strength and Sky Sword 12 styles, was enough to contend with the Great Sage. These dozen or so invincible saints were actually able to withstand it, which showed their strength. In that case, let's do it again. His eyes turned cold. Endless sword chi whizzed over and gathered behind Lin Yi, suddenly condensing into a transparent giant sword. Sword chi hummed and trembled. In an instant the entire space was filled with sword chi. Among the people present, the swords of those with swords on their waists or those with sharp blades in their hands all began to tremble violently and emit clear sounds. Hiss! Even the invincible saints' swords trembled violently and couldn't control them. For a moment, the sound of people gasping could be heard. This kid is too strange. He's only a saint. Even if he's a divine telekinesis saint, it's impossible for him to have such strength. If this doesn't work, I think we should retreat. Looking at each other, the invincible saints all had the thought of retreating. They weren't from the same force and had no intention of cooperating. When faced with danger, they naturally chose to retreat. Buzz, buzz, buzz. However, just as they were about to leave, the whistling sword chi had already become bitingly cold. Sword chi. Rampage. Suddenly, Lin Ye's cold voice sounded, 30,000 miles. As his voice faded, the giant transparent sword behind Lin Yi soared into the sky. Soon after, it transformed into countless sword auras that scattered in all directions. Swish! Swish! In the next moment, the sword chi was piercingly cold. Every ray of sword chi was like a giant dragon, roaring endlessly. It swept across all directions and charged toward those invincible saints. Poochie! Poochie! The sword energy whistled through the air at an extremely fast speed. Before those invincible saints could even react, their bodies had already been pierced through by the sword energy that filled the sky. Roar! A dragon's roar rang out as sword chi pierced through the dozen saints, piercing through every inch of their skin. Dark red blood gushed out of their bodies like a fountain. Intense pain flooded their minds like a tidal wave. Shrill screams rang out continuously, mixed with the whistling sword chi and dragon's roar that filled the sky. In an instant, the sword chi danced wildly, and the dozen invincible saints' bodies were continuously pierced through. Their auras grew weaker and weaker. The crowd below was dumbfounded. In their vision, those invincible saints' bodies were constantly stiffening and twitching, and then blood splattered everywhere. It was extremely strange. With their strength, they could not see the sword chi that filled the sky clearly. They could only feel the terrifying aura in the air. The shrill screams stopped abruptly. The sword chi surged and circled in the air, converging to form a giant dragon that was at least 10 feet long. Destructive divine dragon transformation. Crackle! 7-colored lightning appeared and poured into the body of the sword chi dragon. After all, that group of people were all invincible saints and were very powerful. In order to kill them in one blow and injure them severely, Lin Yi decided to go all out. Other than the 8 times strength that he had not used, the destructive divine dragon transformation, sky sword 12 styles, divine will power, and other powerful divine will techniques all gathered their power into the giant dragon. Roar! The 7-colored lightning giant dragon roared and charged toward the dozen invincible saints. Bang! 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 Like an illusion, the 7-colored lightning giant dragon pierced through the dozen invincible saints' bodies. In the next moment, the dozen invincible saints' bodies shook violently. They opened their mouths and spat out a large mouthful of blood mixed with pieces of their internal organs. Their bodies were like kites with a broken string. They quickly fell down and crashed heavily into the Yu family. The violent tremors caused the entire Yu family to shake. Many Yu family disciples lost their balance and fell down one after another. This shocked everyone in the Yu family. He defeated a dozen invincible saints with one sword. It was simply a fantasy. If Lin Yi was in the great sage realm, they would not be so surprised. However, Lin Yi was only a saint. It was shocking that he could do this. After landing, the dozen invincible saints' bodies kept twitching. Blood flowed out like a fountain. Crackle, crackle! They felt as if their bones were falling apart. They were in extreme pain. Lightning appeared, paralyzing their meridians and bodies. They could not move. His heart was filled with horror, and his eyes were filled with fear. If they could do it all over again, they would not have obeyed the order to come here. This was simply courting death. You're not dead yet. You're indeed capable. In the sky, Lin Yi touched his nose and looked coldly at the crowd. He clenched his right hand. Sword chi appeared on blazing red flame as he descended slightly. What are you doing? I'm warning you. Don't mess around. When they saw this scene, all of the invincible saints started to panic. We're under the orders of Sky Treasure Pavilion. If you're not convinced, you can go to Sky Treasure Pavilion. If you attack us, you'll offend more than just Sky Treasure Pavilion. By then, the entire Sunset City will not tolerate the existence of the Yu family. Hearing this, Lin Yi immediately laughed out loud. If the entire Sunset City will not tolerate the Yu family, then I'll change the entire city. Hearing this, the expressions of the dozen or so invincible saints changed drastically, and they were extremely terrified. They could already hear the piercing killing intent in Lin Ye's words. Invincible saints were the high-end combat power of most forces. Losing a dozen at once was a great loss for the entire Sunset City. This would definitely provoke the anger of those forces. Once a fight broke out and chaos broke out, the attention of Sunset City would be diverted. Cebu Gakuin would then be able to safely plot against the entire Sunset City. Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. Human Mobile Version Reading Website. M. Chapter 607. Crackle. Lightning appeared and paralyzed the bodies of the invincible saint. Looking at Lin Yi, who was approaching them, and feeling the sharp sword chi, their eyes were filled with fear. No, I'm willing to obey. I'm willing to surrender. Please spare my life. Suddenly, a voice begged for mercy. We're willing to surrender too. The rest of the invincible saints begged for mercy. They wanted to kneel and beg for mercy, but they could only watch as Lin Yi approached them with the crimson flame in his hand. Now you're begging for mercy? Lin Yi curled his lips and said coldly, It's too late. This day next year will be the anniversary of your death. Lin Yi had already made up his mind. How could he let them go so easily? Rumble. Bang. Suddenly, there was another violent explosion in the air. A strong shockwave spread out and swept out. Bang. That shockwave was incomparably powerful. Even Lin Yi was forced to retreat a few steps due to his carelessness. As for the invincible saints lying on the ground, they spat out blood and were sent flying again. They looked up and saw a figure falling from the sky like a meteor and landing heavily on the ground. Boom! The entire U residence began to tremble. Cracks began to appear on the surrounding houses and walls. The place where the figure landed was filled with dust, and an enormous crater was formed. Gasps could be heard as the corners of the U family members' mouths twitched. If they were to continue fighting, their U clan would probably be torn apart. As the dust settled, everyone focused their attention and looked carefully. Immediately, they revealed looks of surprise. Those invincible saints' eyes were filled with despair. The person lying in the giant pit was none other than the great sage Guan Tianlong. God, even he was defeated. Where did these two people come from? Why are they so powerful? A saint possessed strength comparable to a great saint, and an invincible saint was capable of defeating intermediate stage saint realm experts. The force behind them must be very strong. With this thought, everyone felt despair in their hearts. Cough, cough. Violent coughing sounds could be heard as Guan Tianlong's body twitched a few times. His aura was weak, and traces of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Raising his head, he saw a figure holding a long saber slowly descending from the sky. The figure was extremely petite, not even reaching half of the long saber. It looked very out of place. However, this time, when the crowd looked at the petite figure, their eyes were filled with shock and respect. Who would have thought that a little girl would be able to defeat an expert in the middle stage of the great sage? Young Master's senior sister is so powerful. Son-in-law, which sect is he from? He's so strong, and his senior sister is also so powerful. Everyone murmured and looked at Shin Qingyun with respect. Even Lin Yi was surprised. He looked at Shin Qingyun curiously. After looking at her, Lin Yi was even more shocked. He could sense that Shin Qingyun did not use all her strength. She did not even use much of her strength, and yet she defeated Guan Tianlong. This surprised him. Shin Qingyun could easily defeat her opponent who was 2 stages above her. This showed how talented and powerful Shin Qingyun was. What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? Sensing Lin Ye's gaze, Shin Qingyun raised her eyebrows and asked jokingly. As for the other people's gazes, she didn't care at all. She just flew into the air and landed in the forest. This guy has been crippled by me. I'll leave the rest to you. Landing beside Lin Yi, Shin Qingyun kept her long saber and stretched. She looked extremely cute. However, no one dared to think that way. If they really thought that Shin Qingyun was just a weak girl without the strength to truss up a chicken, they would die very miserably. Amazing, senior sister. After praising her, Lin Yi walked towards Guan Tianlong with the crimson blaze in his hand. His lips curled and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. Guan Tianlong took a deep look at Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun. Suddenly, he laughed. His laughter was filled with despair and bitterness. I think I already know your identities. I didn't think that you would actually attack Luori City. Forget it, to be able to die at your hands is worth it. Before he finished speaking, Guan Tianlong's body twitched a few times, and he spat out another mouthful of blood. His aura weakened. Raising their eyebrows, Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun were both surprised. Guan Tianlong was actually able to guess their identities. He was quite powerful, but unfortunately, in the face of absolute power, this was useless. Since you already know, then I can't let you live. Raising the crimson blaze, Lin Yi took a deep breath. In the next moment, sword chi filled the sky and condensed into the crimson blaze. The sword released a milky white sword chi. Slash. As he shouted, the crimson blaze danced, and the milky white sword chi shot out. With a whistling sound, it attacked Guan Tianlong and the other invincible saints. For a moment, the eyes of the invincible saints were filled with shock. However, they were paralyzed by the lightning and could not move. They could only watch as the sword chi came towards them. The sword chi vibrated, as if the entire space was whistling. However, just as the sharp sword chi was about to sweep across the entire space, there was a popping sound. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the next moment, the temperature rose and countless flames appeared out of nowhere, suddenly enveloping Guan Tianlong and the others. Poof! The sword chi pierced through, but it was instantly melted by the flames. It did not even pass through the sea of fire. Kaboom! A thunderous sound rang out, and the saintly aura as heavy as a mountain slowly descended. With a cry of bewilderment, Lin Yi and the rest raised their heads to look, only to see a sea of flames engulfing the entire Yu family. It's so hot. Damn it, why is the temperature suddenly so high? Everyone in the Yu family felt as if they were in a huge furnace. Their bodies were hot and sweat kept seeping out. Even Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun were no exception. Their faces froze, and they stared at the sea of fire. They could feel that there was an extremely powerful force in the sea of fire. Pata, pata. Footsteps gradually sounded, and a figure appeared in the sea of fire. At the same time, a cold voice rang out. I want to see who dares to openly break the rules of Sunset City in front of the Heavenly Treasure Pavilion. The voice was cold, and it was like a cold wind blowing in everyone's hearts. Everyone in the Yu family panicked, and could not help but kneel down. Hearing the voice, the invincible saints were overjoyed. They all shouted, Elder Yen is here. Ha ha ha, Elder Yen is here. We are saved. Chapter 608. Following the wild cheers of the crowd, a figure slowly walked out of the sea of fire and entered everyone's sight. It was a skinny old man with a solemn expression. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. His hands, forehead, and even his clothes were covered in fiery red rune patterns, which looked incomparably hot. Yen Shun, the third elder of the Sky Treasure Pavilion. He was powerful at the pinnacle of the Great Sage realm. His fire control skills were extremely powerful, comparable to the Great Sage. He was one of the top experts in the Sky Treasure Pavilion. Seeing Yen Shen, the Yu family members panicked. The Great Sage realm experts were overjoyed. Only Guan Tianlong sneered. He did not have any hope for Yen Shen. What kind of joke was this? If it was really as he had guessed, not to mention Yen Shen, even if the experts of the Sky Treasure Pavilion came, they would not be able to save them. Interesting. Yen Shen glanced at Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun. He sneered. You two are quite talented. But if you want to break the rules of the Sunset City, I'm afraid you are thinking too much. Raising his eyebrows, Lin Yi asked, What do you mean by breaking the rules of the Sunset City? Oh, the Sky Treasure Pavilion? It seems that you are also coveting the treasures of the Yu family. Since that is the case, speak frankly. Don't be so hypocritical. Bastard. Hearing this, Yan Shen's expression changed. He shouted angrily, "What do you mean by the Sky Treasure Pavilion coveting the treasures of the Yu family? We don't even know what treasures the Yu family has. Moreover, the Yu family is just a small sect. Even if they have treasures, we will not be tempted." Ha ha ha! Lin Yi laughed out loud. "If you're not tempted, why would you appear here? You speak so openly, but you do such despicable things. Bah! Shameless! You! Yan Shen was so angry that his body trembled. He glared at Lin Yi. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. They coveted the treasures of the Yu clan, but they had to protect their own identities. Otherwise, it would be difficult for the other factions in Sunset City to obey them. Everyone from the Yu clan was dumbfounded when they heard this. What's going on? Since when did our Yu clan have a treasure? A treasure that even the Heavenly Treasure Pavilion coveted? If there really was such a treasure, how could their Yu clan have fallen to such a state? What a sharp-tongued brat! Yan Shen clenched his fists tightly and gritted his teeth. Hot flames had already appeared on Yan Shen's hands. "I want to see what kind of ability you have, kid." Ha! Fire God Fist. Both of Yan Shen's fists punched out. The fire domain appeared behind him. An illusory fire god roared towards the sky. In the next moment, the flames in Yan Shen's fists transformed into a huge dragon. It roared as it flew out. It swept through the air and blasted towards Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun. Roar! The dragon's roar rang out. The hot flames were like the breath of a huge dragon. They carried a powerful force and attacked Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun. Oh my God, this is the power of the fire domain. Elemental shackles. He can command the elements of heaven and earth with just a wave of his hand. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. Their mouths were wide open as they stared blankly at Yan Shen. He's too strong. As expected of the great sage at the peak, the violent power wreaked havoc. Even though Guan Tianlong and the others were not targeted, they still felt their breathing quicken. It was as if a mountain was pressing down on them. If they were already in such a state, there was no need to mention Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun. The hot flames, the violent saint power, and the strong saint aura pressed down on Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun, forcing them to retreat. Even with their strength, they were unable to resist. In an instant, Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun's faces changed dramatically. They gritted their teeth and resisted with all their might. Lin Yi even secretly communicated with Biluo. When the time came, he would borrow her power. Although Biluo was helpless, at this moment, they were in a life-and-death situation. She could only agree. The gap between the peak great sage and them was too big. Even if they were talented, even if they had many supreme sacred weapons, they could not make up for it. Boom boom boom. The hot flames turned into a huge dragon. As it roared, it got closer to Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun. Feeling the flames in front of them getting hotter, Lin Yi was about to communicate with Biluo. Suddenly, a low sigh reverberated in everyone's ears. Hearing the voice, Lin Yi could not help but pause. Biluo in his sea of consciousness also quietly dispersed her power. Yan Shen raised his eyebrows slightly. His eyes were like an eagle's as he looked around. Buzz! A strange power suddenly vibrated. In an instant, the two fire dragons in the sky were like snow meeting the sun. They quickly dissipated and turned into nothingness. What's going on? Seeing this scene, Yan Shen was shocked. His face changed dramatically. He could not help but take a few steps back. His eyes were fixed in front of him. Yan Shen was shocked. The rest were also stunned. Even Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun were stunned. Could it be that Elder Sibu Gakuin had made a move? Although they had run out, they were sure that Flawless White must have known about their situation. It would be ridiculous if a heavenly sage expert had really let them run out without anyone knowing. Sigh. The sigh was suddenly loud and clear. Everyone was shocked. Yen Shen looked around in a panic. He no longer looked as calm and composed as before. Boom. Suddenly, a spatial crack appeared. A figure appeared quietly in front of Yen Shen. His body was glowing. As soon as the figure appeared, he threw out a punch. Lightning and fire energy intertwined and hit Yen Shen's abdomen heavily. Bang! Yen Shen did not even have time to react after receiving such a heavy blow. He was sent flying by the punch. Blood spurted out from his body in the air. Crackle! Lightning continuously burst out from Yen Shen's body, causing his hair to stand on end. Hiss! Seeing this scene, everyone could not help but gasp. Their eyes were filled with curiosity as they turned to look at the figure. Who could send a great sage expert flying with a punch? When everyone from the Yu family saw the figure clearly, their faces changed drastically. They widened their eyes and opened their mouth. They could not stop muttering. Yu Menglin, Yu Hongrue and the rest were shocked. They shook their heads and shouted, "Old ancestor? Oh my God, it's really the old ancestor! The old ancestor has come out of seclusion! Ha ha, this is great! The old ancestor has finally come out of seclusion!" Everyone from the Yu family was ecstatic. Their cheers shook the entire Yu family. The old ancestor had come out of seclusion. This meant that the Yu family would no longer be bullied by others. With the addition of the son-in-law, the Yu family could even achieve glory again. Baidu search 81 Chinese Websidio. No advertising message. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.